Chapter 2562. Amidst the laughter from the crowd. Yiqing Luo narrowed her long and narrow eyes, but there wasn't a trace of panic on her expression. Instead, she tilted her head as she looked at Xia Ji with a slight smile and said word by word, "That's right, heaven returning element serene grass, one stalk every 1,000 years. But, how can Sovereign Beilon be so sure that your heaven returning element serene pill is real?" The moment she said that, the surrounding crowd burst into an uproar. This young lady actually doubted that the pill given by Sovereign Beilon was fake. How could he insist that his pills were real? This was simply unheard of. One was the sovereign of North Lawn Continent. The other was a young lass with unknown origins. One was a precious moonlight porcelain medicine bottle. The other was a low-grade celadone medicine bottle. No matter who it was, they would not believe that. That unknown young lady's low-grade celadone medicine bottle contained the real heaven-returning element serene pill. Xiao Lingling laughed even more happily. "Yi Luo, you're too funny. Uncle Sovereign is the monarch of a dynasty. Would he use a fake pill to deceive Uncle Sovereign? Do you know that by slandering Uncle Sovereign, other than being a spy from another country, you will also be charged with disrespecting the North Lawn royal family, insulting and slandering the monarch?" Lan Ling Nuo wrapped her brocade robe tightly as her slender fingers gripped tightly onto the brocade robe with exquisite embroidery as she looked at Yin Yanxiu gently. Seeing his calm eyes staring at Yiqing Luo without blinking, as though he was contemplating whether Yi Luo was a liar or not, she stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo's direction as she raised her head and said, "Just ask, who here would believe your nonsense? Yi Luo, stop struggling. If you're really not a spy from another country, then you should leave with Sovereign Beilon with a clear conscience so that he can investigate your identity and prove your innocence." Lan Ling Nuo's words made the guests nod their heads in agreement. If he really had a clear conscience, then shouldn't he prove his innocence? But there were some who questioned softly. This was obviously Sovereign Beilon targeting Yi Luo for his niece. If Yi Luo really left with Sovereign Beilon, what innocence was there to speak of? However, Sovereign Beilon was present at the scene. This little bit of doubt didn't cause any waves at all. It was suppressed by countless voices of agreement. "You're stalling for time and slandering Sovereign Beilon for using fake elixirs to deceive the sect master. Isn't it because you have a guilty conscience and want to stall for time?" Lan Ling Nuo noticed that everyone's gazes were focused on her. She purposely puffed out her chest and showed off the long robe covering her body. In the next instant, a tender and affectionate smile appeared at the corner of her mouth, and she looked at Yin Yanxiu tenderly. "Big brother Xiu, tell me, am I right?" Yin Yanxiu frowned slightly as if he was disgusted by Lan Ling Nuo calling him Big Brother Xiu. He didn't even bother to look at Lan Ling Nuo. He looked up at Xia Ji and said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, "Lady Yi is a good friend of mine and is also a guest that I personally welcomed into Qin Yu clan. If there's a problem with Miss Ye's identity, I won't be able to escape the blame. I believe in Lady Ye's character, so, in order to verify Lady Ye's words, I, as the young sect master, plead the Alchemist Guild to represent Elder Wu Yao to check if Lady Ye's elixir is the heaven-recovering tranquil pill." Yin Yanxiu's words made everyone look at Yiqing Luo with a strange gaze. Chapter 2563. The main hall was in an uproar. Xia Ji's expression was extremely gloomy. Yin Yanxiu's words, it could be said to have given him 2 resounding slaps on his face. He was overflowing with evil intentions as he stared unblinkingly at the celadone bottle in Yiqing Luo's hands. He naturally didn't believe that the medicinal pill in Yiqing Luo's hands was the real heaven-recovering serene pill. He was certain that the medicinal pill which he had presented was the real heaven-recovering serene pill. Right from the start, Xia Ji had no intention to present such a high-grade medicinal pill like the heaven-recovering serene pill. If it wasn't for Xiao Lingling, for the royal family's face. He would not possibly take out the heaven-recovering serene pill. That slut, how dare she doubt that his medicinal pill was fake? Enrich, that fellow, also stood on that slut's side, making him lose face in front of everyone. Xia Ji sneered as his gaze slowly shifted onto Enrich. Young sect master is really awe-inspiring. Previously I heard that young sect master had personally chased my little region princess out of Qinhua sect. I thought it was because little region princess was young and insensible, spouting nonsense in front of me. Now it seems that young sect master is extremely dissatisfied with the North Wave's royal family. Chase little region princess out of Qinhua sect. There were quite a number of VIPs present and they didn't know what had happened at the main residence's entrance. Hearing Xia Ji's words, the gazes which they shot towards Enrich and Yi Luo became even more ambiguous. From the start to the end, young sect master seemed to have been standing on the young lady's side, speaking up for her, even going against the royal family. If it was said that young sect master had no interest in that young lady, they wouldn't believe it even if they were beaten to death. The surrounding people were pointing fingers at Enrich, but he didn't bother about it. But Yiqing Luo, who was a married woman, expressed. Although Xian wasn't by her side. Scandals or whatever, absolutely must not be spread. Xian, that vinegar jar. Even if it was completely unrelated vinegar. He could also drink till he flew up. Before Enrich opened his mouth, Yiqing Luo had already taken a few steps forward. A pair of long and narrow eyes stared at Xia Ji with a faint smile. She said with a smile, as for why the young sect master asked the young princess to leave the Qinhua sect, Monarch Balon just needs to ask around and you will know the cause and effect. At this point, her voice turned cold and her eyes turned sharp. If you still think that it's the young sect master's fault when the time comes, then I'm sure everyone present will know the inner quality of the Northern Wave imperial family. Xia Ji's eyelids suddenly twitched. He frowned and stared at the girl in front of him. This young girl was actually facing so many pairs of eyes. In the face of His Majesty as the ruler of a dynasty, he was still fearless and calm. He felt that this girl was definitely not a simple character. If they became enemies, it was not a wise move. Yiqing Luo didn't care what Monarch Balon was thinking about. She still maintained an extremely faint smile and tossed the pill bottle in her hand. As for whether these pills are real or fake, Elder Wu Tao will check them, and we will know for sure. Don't even think about it. Yi Luo, I will not let you stall for time. The pills given by the Northern Wave imperial family are absolutely not fake. Don't even think of playing any tricks. Xia Lingling opened her mouth to interrupt, with a face full of ridicule and ridicule. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she smiled and nodded her head. If you're really sure that the pills given by the Northern Wave imperial family are real, then you should accept Elder Wu Tao's investigation with a clear conscience, so that Elder Wu Tao can clear the Northern Wave imperial family's name. These words, why did it sound so familiar? Chapter 2564. Yiqing Luo tilted her head as she gave a light smile, or could it be that you have a guilty conscience? The birthday gift given to Sovereign, is it really fake? She used this kind of calm tone, saying something that made one's heart tremble. The crowd expressed that only this young lady was able to do it without any incongruity. Yiqing Luo took a look at the surrounding guests who were watching the show, and looked at Xia Ji whose face was steely green as he suppressed his anger. She smiled even more joyously. Sovereign Northlawn says that you put Qinhua sect in your eyes, but in your heart. Even the birthday gift given is fake. TSK, I really doubt Sovereign Northland's sincerity. Investigate. Investigate. Alright, I will get the Alchemist Guild to investigate. Xia Ji indeed wasn't agitated as he gritted his teeth and bellowed furiously, but Young lass, once the Alchemist Guild finds out that your medicinal pills are fake, your crime will be added with another. Slandering the royal family is a capital crime. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she lifted a lock of hair which was hanging on her shoulder, curling it on her fingertips as she smiled casually. Then what if it is confirmed that your medicinal pills are fake? How could my medicinal pills be fake? Xia Ji's face was filled with anger. Yiqing Luo replied with a smile, my medicinal pills are also not fake. Xia Ji's eyes turned gloomy as a vicious aura seeped out bit by bit. He clenched his fists as green veins popped out on his forehead. If my medicinal pills are fake, I will personally apologize to you in front of all the guests from the various continents. How much is your apology worth? Do you think I care about your apology? Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes without any hesitation. From the start to the end, he was creating trouble and targeting her. Just casually apologizing, and he thought that this matter could be brushed off. There was no practical benefit at all. She didn't have the time to waste on him. Xia Ji was so angry that he only felt a gush of heat surging up to his head. The anger in his chest seemed as though it was going to pour out in torrents. His eyes widened as his face and neck turned red, gritting his teeth, as though he couldn't wait to swallow the young lady in front of him alive. He was the dignified sovereign North Lawn. She actually despised him. There wasn't any respect towards him in her tone. Instead, they were filled with disdain and contempt. What right did a lowly woman have to look down on the sovereign of the Northern Wave continent? If Monarch Bay Land's pills are fake, then, give me the imperial family's permit. I can use my identity as a member of the imperial family to enter and leave the northern continent. Yiqing Luo seemed as though she hadn't seen Xia Ji's anger, as she continued to raise her own request. You. At this moment, Xia Ji was so angry that he couldn't even speak. At this moment, he deeply understood the meaning of Yiqing Luo's sentence, I don't put you in my eyes. Yi Luo. You are too presumptuous. Xiao Lingling's face turned red, and she slammed the table in anger. You're clearly not putting the Northern Wave imperial family in your eyes. You want to rebel. Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes innocently, with an innocent smile and a puzzled look, don't tell me I should put you in my eyes. Pfft, many honored guests couldn't help but laugh out loud. This girl was really infuriating to death without paying for it. Every word and sentence could poison someone to death in minutes. They couldn't win against her. And they couldn't really lower their own status to take action against her. They were angry and frustrated, but had nowhere to vent it out. TSK, luckily the people who had a conflict with her weren't them. Let's silently observe a moment of silence for the Northern Wave imperial family. Chapter 2565. You. Xiao Lingling pointed at Yiqing Luo as her little face flushed red and twisted with anger. Yiqing Luo smiled till her eyes curved as she continued, since you keep saying that my medicinal pills are fake and insist that I'm another country's spy, don't tell me that I'm not allowed to fight for my own rights and interests. What Miss Yi said is right. Suddenly, a deep voice rang from the main seat. Yin Qinghao, who had been silent all this while, looked at Yiqing Luo with a torch-like gaze. On his face, there wasn't a single trace of annoyance for the birthday banquet being disturbed. Instead, his lips curled into a faint smile. Although Miss Yi and I are just acquainted for the first time, but with this sect master's ability to read people for so many years, this sect master is willing to believe in Miss Yi's temperament. His voice was steady but also gentle. Following that, he looked toward Xia Ji as he gave a gentle smile. Of course, this sect master also believes that sect master will not give me a fake birthday gift in front of everyone. Yin Qinghao's words made everyone scratch their heads in confusion. Was he intending to not offend either side? Immediately following that, Yin Qinghao continued, Sky Yuan serene grass, there's only one stalk in 1,000 years. I believe between the two of you, there must be one who is fake. But the two of you don't know that the medicinal pills which you have obtained are fake. Xia Ji's face turned slightly pale as his slightly plump face was slightly moved. This point wasn't impossible. After all, a stalk of one stalk in 1,000 years. Who could be sure if it was real or fake? Alchemist Guild's elder Wu Tao, may I trouble you to check both of your medicinal pills in front of everyone? Yin Qinghao's voice was calm, neither arrogant nor impatient, so that both of you can rest assured and not argue over this matter. At this moment, an elderly dressed in a white robe walked out from the crowd. The elderly had a head full of white hair which was meticulously tied up with a wooden crown. His white robe was clean. But as he stood up and moved, wherever he passed by, the guests could smell a faint medicinal herb smell. This person was the Alchemist Guild's representative, Alchemist Guild's elder Wu Tao. This elder is willing to help both of you to verify the authenticity. Wu Tao cupped his hands towards Yin Qinghao. Seeing Wu Tao walking out, Yi Qing Luo's eyes lit up slightly. Wasn't this person Elder Wu Tao, who had been helping her during the alchemy competition in the Alchemy Alliance? He didn't expect that the Alchemy Union would send him as a representative to Yin Qinghao's birthday banquet. She thought that the representative who came to the Northern Wave continent would be the Mu family's second young master. Xia Ji saw that Wu Tao had already taken the initiative to stand up and verify for them. His face was completely overcast. However, the arrow was already knocked on the bowstring, and it had to be released. He took a deep breath and suppressed his anger as he stared sinisterly at Yi Qing Luo. I'll cooperate with your farce, and whatever request you say, I'll agree to it. But, if it is proven that our medicinal pills are real, you will obediently follow us back to the palace and accept a thorough investigation of your identity. No problem. Yi Qing Luo snapped her fingers straightforwardly as she turned her head to look at Yin Qinghao, sovereign, and everyone present here can be a witness. I hope that North Lawn monarch won't lose his credibility after losing his face. Yin Qinghao nodded and returned to his seat with his hands behind his back. He took a look at his side. Housekeeper Yin had received the moonlight porcelain bottle from Xiao Lingling and had yet to leave the banquet. Now that he had received Yin Qinghao's instructions, he was preparing to carry the moonlight porcelain bottle and walk towards Wu Tao. But he heard a deep and cold voice ringing. Chapter 2566. This voice, the faces of the guests who were watching the show froze. All of them turned their gazes towards the direction of the voice in unison. In the first row of the birthday banquet, the young man, who had not said a word since he entered the birthday banquet but had a strong sense of presence, Gue Wu. It was Gue Wu who spoke. Master Gue Wu came to the birthday banquet in Yi Luo's carriage. He also sat in the same row as Yi Luo. It could be seen that the relationship between the two was not ordinary. But, since Yi Luo was targeted, Master Gue Wu did not speak to stop or speak for Yi Luo. Everyone thought that Master Gue Wu did not care about Yi Luo at all. But now, Master Gue Wu spoke. Was he going to speak for Yi Luo? If Master Gue Wu pleaded for Yi Luo, could Sovereign Beilong still insist on bringing Yi Luo back to the palace for a thorough investigation? Everyone looked at Gue Wu nervously and then at Xia Ji, whose face was livid. Under everyone's nervous and expectant gaze, Gue Wu looked calm and emotionless. Send the moonlight porcelain bottle to Sovereign Beilong. Housekeeper Yin was stunned and did not understand the meaning of Gue Wu's words. Everyone was also confused and looked at Xia Ji doubtfully. Was Gue Wu trying to keep the peace? Was he trying to save Yi Luo's face? However, everyone waited for a long time and Gue Wu did not say anything. Cough, 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 a clear voice cleared its throat. Zhou Mo stood up lazily with Kitty Li in his arms. His long and narrow eyes curved into a demonic smile. Ah, Wu wants you to take a good look at the elixir in the bottle first. He wants you to see if the elixir in the bottle is the one he gave Sect Master Yin. Yes, who knew that after Elder Wu Tao said that your elixir is fake, you would accuse me of secretly swapping your elixir. Kitty Li was surprisingly obedient in Zhou Mo's arms. She widened her beautiful eyes and nodded solemnly. Zhou Mo's eyes were full of love. He rubbed the head of the person in his arms and smiled gently. Little Kitty is right. To avoid this kind of thing from happening, we have to be careful. Xia Ji's face suddenly became extremely gloomy. However, due to the relationship between Zhou Mo and Gue Wu, he could only swallow his resentment. Xia Ji's face was livid as he watched Butler Yin hand the moonlight porcelain bottle to him. His hands were stiff as he took the moonlight porcelain bottle. After checking the pill inside, he stiffly stuffed it back into Butler Yin's hand. Zhou Mo acted as though he didn't notice Xia Ji's rage points. He was still in a lazy posture. His long and narrow eyes stared at Xia Ji as if he was consuming something. He said in a frivolous tone, "Sovereign Beilan, are you sure?" "I'm certain." Sovereign Beilan spat out each word through gritted teeth. Zhou Mo nodded in satisfaction. "You're the ruler of a dynasty, Sovereign Beilan. Don't do anything that will bring shame to the imperial family." Although the Beilan imperial family doesn't have much of a reputation to speak of right now, they still have to maintain some dignity. Xia Ji was so angry that his head was overflowing with blood. He clenched his fists tightly and suppressed his anger. The sweet and fishy feeling in his chest was about to surge into his heart. The surrounding guests who were watching the show all expressed, as expected of Miss Ye's friend. His mouth was poisonous and his ability to insult people was not inferior to Miss Yi at all. Birds of a feather flocked together. The group of people didn't take the people of the Beilan imperial family seriously at all. However, they had the ghost martial artist keeping watch over them. Chapter 2567. Everyone was discussing fervently. Housekeeper Yin had already passed the medicine bottle into Wu Tao's hands. Wu Tao was the Alchemist Guild's elder. In the pugilistic world, he had a certain reputation. No one had any objections to him checking. Earlier when Housekeeper Yin passed the moonlight porcelain bottle to Xia Ji to check, Yin Qinghao had already called for the servants to carry a spacious table and placed it in the middle of the banquet. Wu Tao picked up the medicine bottle and opened the bottle cap. Immediately, a rich medicinal fragrance floated out from the bottle. Faintly, there was a sparkling light which was emitted from the bottle. Everyone's gazes were immediately attracted by that glow. The VIPs present were all influential people from various continents. Even if they didn't know how to refine medicine. They were also clear that the higher the grade of the pill, the smoother the surface of the pill. Furthermore, it would emit a spiritual glow which belonged to the pill. Generally speaking, only God-grade pills would emit this kind of spiritual glow. Could it be? Monarch Beilan's heaven-returning serene pill was a God-grade pill. If it was a God-grade pill, that heaven-returning serene pill was absolutely not fake. Everyone's eyes widened as they stared anxiously at Wu Tao's expression and the moonlight porcelain bottle. Looking at the surrounding people's reactions. Xia Ji scoffed coldly as his sharp eyes looked towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's senses were strong and she felt uncomfortable being stared at by that gaze. She frowned as she raised her head and looked over. Then she met with Xia Ji's chilly gaze. Xia Ji's eyes were filled with delight, as though he was ridiculing Yiqing Luo for overestimating herself. However, at the instant when she met his gaze, Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled upwards as she smiled sweetly. Facing him, her pink lips moved slightly as she spat out two words silently, "Trash." Xia Ji's fingers clenched tightly as his chest heaved up and down violently, apparently he was infuriated. Hiss! Just at this moment, the surrounding crowd suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air. It turned out that Wu Tao had poured the elixir from the bottle into a piece of white velvet cloth that he had prepared beforehand. A total of 3 pills. Each pill was approximately the size of a fingernail. Each pill was emitting a fluorescent glow. Crystal clear, as though it was carved out of a beautiful white jade. This is the Heaven Reversing Essence Nether Pill. To be able to take a look at this kind of supreme-grade medicinal pill, I'm already satisfied. This is definitely the real Heaven Reversing Nether Pill. Only a top-notch medicinal pill like the Heaven Returning Essence Nether Pill would be so transparent, and only then would it have such a radiance. Why would Sovereign Balon give a fake elixir to Sect Masterine as a birthday gift? This must be real. That little girl is still too young. Why would she think of digging her own grave to stall for time? It's a pity that both Master Guewu and Sect Masterine are on her side. Now, they've been completely humiliated by that little girl. After everyone saw the 3 elixirs, all the opinions were completely in Xia Ji's favor. Listening to everyone's confident tone, the smug smile on Xia Lingling's face grew wider. Little slut, you still want to take back the Tianyuan Nether Pill to make a fuss. This time, let's see how she's going to clean up this mess. His face had been slapped resoundingly. Just as everyone was sighing in admiration and the members of the Northern Wave Imperial family were feeling proud of themselves, Wu Tao picked up an elixir, narrowed his eyes and scrutinized it for a long time. He frowned slightly. Hearing the discussions of the surrounding people, he slowly shook his head. No, the spiritual light of a divine-grade elixir is definitely not like this. Wu Tao's words caused the surrounding people to quieten down in an instant. Chapter 2568. Wu Tao raised the elixir pill up high, facing the light from the horizon, his fingers stroking the elixir little by little. This elixir pill is indeed crystal clear and extremely smooth. It also shines with a velvet glow. It is indeed a good elixir pill. Then why did you say that this isn't a divine-grade elixir pill? Xia Lingling said angrily. Wu Tao's words just now almost scared her to death. Xia Ji's face darkened and he said sternly, Elder Wu Tao, look carefully. Don't say things that will cause misunderstandings. The cold and menacing voice made Wu Tao unhappy. He frowned slightly and put down the elixir pill. He looked at Xia Ji and said in an unfriendly tone, if you don't trust me, you can get someone else to verify the authenticity of the elixir pill. With that, he flicked his sleeves and turned to leave. Yin Qinghao immediately stood up and stopped Wu Tao. Elder Wu Tao, you are the only one here who is about to be promoted to an herbal grandmaster. You are also the only one who can truly verify the authenticity of the heaven-restoring serene pill. How can Sovereign Balon not trust you? Then, he looked at Xia Ji and gave him a look. Don't you think so, Lord Wu Tao? How can you not trust Elder Wu Tao's professionalism in elixir pills? Xia Ji's face darkened, his eyes quiet and heavy, extremely repressed. After a long while, he said stiffly, yes, Elder Wu Tao is an elder of the Alchemy Guild. Of course I trust you. Wu Tao's expression finally softened. He snorted coldly and let Yin Qinghao push him back to the elixir pill. Elder Wu Tao, just now you said that the glow of this elixir pill is not the spiritual glow of a divine-grade elixir pill. Then what is this light? Yin Qinghao stood at the side and looked closely at the 3 elixir pills on the white cloth. He asked in confusion. These 3 elixir pills, if they were really the heaven-restoring serene pill, this would be of great help to his profound rank advancement. Wu Tao was still unhappy. He snorted with a straight face and answered, the spiritual glow of a divine-grade elixir pill is golden, a golden light without any impurities. Golden light. Everyone's eyes shifted to the 3 elixir pills on the white cloth. These 3 pills all glowed with a fluffy white light. That was obviously not the spiritual light of a divine-grade medicinal pill. Could it be? Did Monarch Balon really give Sect Master Ain a fake elixir as a birthday gift? The gazes of ridicule and suspicion from countless guests caused Xia Ji to be angered to the point he clenched his teeth tightly, causing his teeth to creak. Xia Lingling flew into a rage out of humiliation, her eyes turning red with anger. Even if the heaven-returning nether pill that Uncle June sent isn't a divine-grade pill, it doesn't mean that it isn't a heaven-returning nether pill. Who set the rule that the heaven-returning essence nether pill must be a divine-grade medicinal pill? Although I don't know much about alchemy, I can be sure that no one in this nirvana realm has ever seen a divine-grade medicinal pill. Even high-grade medicinal pills are rarely seen. Lon Ling Nua also chimed in from the side, these 3 elixirs should all be high-grade elixirs. Elder Wu Tao, am I right? Wu Yu's eyes flickered, and she stared at Lon Ling Nua. Princess Dong Lon is right. These are indeed 3 superior-grade elixirs. Lon Ling Nua smiled gently, but there was pride in her eyes that she was determined to win. Superior-grade elixirs? Although they weren't divine-grade elixirs. That was enough to make everyone present go crazy. Once again, the guests were stirred. Wu Tao stared at Lon Ling Nua without blinking, and asked with interest, Princess Dong Lon has never come into contact with alchemy. Chapter 2569. How did East Lan Region Princess differentiate that these 3 pills are upper-grade pills? Wu Tao asked again. Lon Ling Nua's eyes flashed past a glint of joy. She clutched her brocade robe tightly as her smile widened, intentionally using a humble tone, from the shape and color of the pills, I can tell. Moreover, although these 3 pills don't have the spiritual glow of God-grade pills, but the surrounding glow is also very clean and pure. So I deduced that these 3 pills' grade is not low. Finishing her words, Lon Ling Nua's face was filled with arrogance as she raised her chin, waiting for Wu Tao's praise. If she could gain the favor of the Alchemist Guild's elder. To make use of this opportunity to enter the Alchemist Guild and become their disciple. She, Lon Ling Nua, East Land's #1 beauty's reputation, would definitely be even more resounding. Wu Tao glanced at her with a smile which didn't look like a smile. But he didn't open his mouth to answer her, whether her guess was right or wrong. Lon Ling Nua pursed her red lips as she was about to open her mouth unwillingly. However, he was interrupted by a sharp female voice beside him. Elder Wu Tao, since we've confirmed that the heaven-restoring nether pill is a high-grade medicinal pill, shouldn't we also check the medicinal pill in Yi Luo's hand now? Xia Lingling shot a provocative gaze towards Yi Qing Luo's direction fiercely. This region princess really wants to see what the heaven-returning serene pill in Yi Luo's hands looks like. Xia Lingling's words instantly diverted everyone's attention. They all shifted their sights towards the young lady who was standing by the side with her arms crossed, looking as though she was watching a show. Lon Ling Nua was so angry that she almost threw up blood. She scolded Xia Lingling a few hundred times in her heart. That damned Xia Lingling. Was she purposely going against her? It wasn't easy for her to clear her name and even attract Elder Wu Tao's attention. Xia Lingling came to create trouble. Lon Ling Nua lowered her head as she shot a glance at Xia Lingling's peripheral vision, which was filled with an eerie chill. At this moment, indeed no one remembered Lon Ling Nua's evaluation of those 3 upper-grade pills. Miss Yi, quickly take out your pills for Elder Wu Tao to take a look. We all want to see what the real heaven-returning serene pill looks like. Quickly, take it out for a look. The group of hedonistic sons who wished for the whole world to be in chaos started to tease him. While the crowd was discussing, Wu Tao shifted his gaze to the girl in red. At first glance, his heart skipped a beat. He felt that the young lady in front of him was somewhat familiar. But that face was extremely unfamiliar. He searched through his mind, but couldn't find the slightest impression. Elder Wu Tao, sorry to trouble you. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a smile, her fingertips shook and the celadone bottle in her hand was thrown to Wu Tao. Her smile was extremely clean and straightforward. There was no pretense at all. When he looked at Wu Tao, there was no subservience or deliberate flattery in his eyes. Wu Tao inexplicably had a good impression of this young girl. He stretched out his hand and caught the bottle of medicine that was thrown at him. The inferior celadone medicine bottle was beside the precious moonlight porcelain bottle. It was a stark contrast. Xiao Lingling was the first to burst into laughter, her tone full of disdain. Lowly commoner, lowly commoner. How could you have a heaven-restoring nether pill in that inferior porcelain of yours? Ha ha ha. Yiqing Luo raised her brows indifferently as she smiled. Using such a precious moonlight porcelain bottle to store a few inferior pills, did you think that the inferior pills could become the genuine ones? Her tone was gentle and her smile was gentle. If one didn't listen carefully to the meaning in her words, totally couldn't tell that she was ridiculing Xiao Lingling. Chapter 2570. At this moment, Wu Tao had already pulled out another piece of slightly darker, slightly yellowish cloth as he placed it beside the 3 pills. After that, he opened the bottle. A strong medicinal fragrance seeped into Wu Tao's nose. Wu Tao's hand froze as his eyes suddenly widened. That medicinal fragrance, at the moment it was emitted, it gradually disappeared into the air. Other than Wu Tao and Yin Qinghao who was standing nearby, no one else smelled it. The guests had been paying close attention to the changes in Wu Tao's expression. Seeing him revealing such a shocked expression, the guests burst into an uproar. One must know that when Wu Tao opened the moonlight porcelain bottle, he had never revealed any special astonished or shocked expression. To be able to make Wu Tao, who was used to seeing various kinds of pills, to reveal such an astonished expression. Could it be Yi Luo's celadone bottle? What incredible pill was contained in it? Don't act mysterious. It's not like we can't see or smell it. Earlier when the moonlight porcelain bottle was opened, the medicinal fragrance filled the entire main hall. Just Yi Luo's pill, there's no smell at all. What kind of top-grade pill could it be? Xiao Lingling saw everyone discussing Wu Tao's expression and expressed their curiosity towards Yi Luo's pill, so she couldn't hold it in any longer. She didn't believe that Yi Luo would have any top-grade pill in his hands. Wu Tao's expression congealed as he ignored the surrounding discussions. He slowly lifted the bottle and poured out the elixir inside. A pill the size of a fingernail rolled onto the light yellow silk cloth. After that. There was no after that. One pill. In that celadone bottle, there was only one pill. The crowd couldn't help but burst out laughing. Wasn't he being too stingy? Only one elixir was given as a birthday gift. Did she really think that her pill was the peerless heaven-returning serene pill? Even if it was really the heaven-returning serene pill. North Lawn Monarch had already given 3 pills. This young lady, taking out one pill, was she looking down on Qin Yu sect? But, no matter how the surrounding people ridiculed her, Yiqing Luo maintained a light smile as she crossed her arms, as though she wasn't affected at all. Whereas the 2 people standing in front of the table, stared unblinkingly at that pill in the silk cloth. Their expressions were solemn as they didn't say a single word. Had he gone mad from anger? Everyone thought this in their hearts as they craned their necks to look at the pill in front of Wu Tao. In the light yellow silk cloth, a dark and swarthy pill was swaying in the air by itself. To the side, in the white silk cloth, there were 3 crystalline pills, forming a stark contrast. When Xiao Lingling saw the black pill, she couldn't help but laugh out loud. This is the heaven-reversing Yuan serene pill you were talking about. Ha ha ha, just this kind of medicinal pill, our Northern Wave Imperial family can grab a whole bunch, okay? How dare he use this kind of pill to fool everyone? That dark and swarthy one was extremely inconspicuous. No matter how he looked at it, it was just a low-grade pill. The way the guests looked at Yiqing Luo was filled with ridicule. Holding a low-grade pill here and pretending that it was a precious heaven-reversing essence nether pill. He even dared to suggest checking the authenticity of the pills. Where did she get her face from? Now. She had slapped her own face. Yi Luo, now that the outcome has been decided, you must accept your loss. Obediently kneel down and kowtow to admit your mistake. Hearing the surrounding people's ridicule towards Yiqing Luo, Xiao Lingling felt refreshed all over. She turned her head to look at Xiao Ji, Uncle Monarch, get someone to capture her back to the palace. She's a spy from another country and even slandered our royal family. Her crime is punishable by death. Chapter 2571. Xiao Ji's eyes sunk as he looked at Yiqing Luo gloomily. His heart was filled with bewilderment and puzzlement. Now, it was obvious that the matter was settled. But this young lady was still so calm. As though she wasn't worried that Wu Tao would announce that her medicinal pill was fake. And totally not worried about what consequences there would be after this. Calm. Which made his heart feel inexplicably uneasy. Uncle Monarch. Xiao Lingling called out a few times but Xiao Ji didn't respond to her as she pouted unhappily. She bit her lower lip as her little hands hugged Xiao Ji's arm tightly. Both of them were vixens. That damned Yi Luo actually wanted to seduce her uncle. Did she think that she could escape from the charge in this way? Xiao Lingling's eyes flickered with a vicious hatred as her gaze swept towards the 10 over royal guards who weren't injured. Go, bring her back to the palace. Those 10 over royal guards looked at one another in dismay and immediately looked towards Xiao Ji. You all don't even listen to this princess's words. Xiao Lingling was so angry that she stomped her feet as she shook off Xiao Ji's arm and charged towards the royal guards, about to hit them. Lingling. Xiao Ji's dignified voice stopped Xiao Lingling. Xiao Lingling was frightened as her eyes turned red as though she was about to cry as she stood there. Xiao Ji's gaze was cold and sharp like a blade as he looked towards Yiqing Luo's direction as he said word by word, since you're willing to bet, you all invite Miss Yi back to the palace. Yes. The royal guards cupped their fists as they speedily moved towards Yiqing Luo's direction. 10 over figures surrounded Yiqing Luo in an orderly fashion. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as her gaze swept past those 10 over royal guards. Her lips curled as she revealed a sneer of ridicule. Her brows were filled with ridicule. Before she opened her mouth, Xiao Ji already spoke in a deep voice. Miss Yi, this is the bet between you and me, are you going to go against it? Which ear of yours heard Wu Tao say that my medicinal pill is fake? Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly as her tone was filled with ridicule. So anxious to get your dog to bite me, don't tell me you have a guilty conscience. Your pill was fake to begin with. Elder Wu Yao is giving you face by not saying anything. You ask everyone here yourself and see who will believe that your medicinal pill isn't fake. Xiao Lingling roared angrily. I believe you. I believe it too. And Kitty. In the first row, the representatives of the Heavenly Academy raised their hands. Then, Zoumo also raised his hand along with the person in his arms. I believe it too. Those honored guests who originally wanted to ridicule him immediately went silent. Zoumo's words represented Gue Wu's words. How could they dare to refute Gue Wu's words? The voices of these people resounded in the silent hall, loud and clear. Xiao Lingling's teeth creaked as she stared angrily at Yiqing Luo, wanting to say something. However, Xiao Ji grabbed his arm. Xiao Ji's sinister gaze shifted from Yiqing Luo to Wu Tao. Elder Wu Tao, please give me an accurate answer so that I can give Miss Yi a good lesson. Cough cough cough. This elder indeed didn't say that this young lady's medicinal pill is fake. Wu Tao stared straight at that dark and swarthy medicinal pill as his eyes shone with radiance. This is the heaven-returning serene pill. This is absolutely the heaven-returning serene pill. Wu Tao's eyes sparkled with joy towards the best-grade medicinal pill. Chapter 2572. Elder Wu Tao's words, as well as his expression, caused an uproar in the hall. All the guests looked at Wu Tao in disbelief. They couldn't believe their ears. Xiao Lingling's face turned pale. She couldn't accept it. She slammed the table and screamed angrily, "Impossible! How could her elixir be the heaven-restoring serene elixir? You deliberately helped that bitch to cover up the lie in order to build a relationship with Master Guiwu, right?" Her fingers trembled as she pointed at Wu Tao. Her voice became sharper and sharper. "You are definitely in cahoots. You did it on purpose." Xiao Lingling. Xiao Ji recovered from his daze. When he heard Xiao Lingling's rude words, his face darkened. He stepped forward and grabbed Xiao Lingling, who looked like she had gone mad. "Uncle Jun. Let me go. This group of people are in cahoots with that bitch, that spy from another country. They all want to rebel. They want to overthrow our Xiao family." Xiao Lingling gritted her teeth and roared. Her eyes were scarlet, and her little face was extremely hideous. Slap. There was a crisp sound of a slap. Xiao Ji slapped Xiao Lingling's face. "You shut up." Xiao Ji used all his strength in this slap. Xiao Lingling's ears buzzed, and a mouthful of blood spurted out from her mouth. You hit me." Xiao Lingling stared at Xiao Ji in shock. Her face was red and swollen. She grimaced in pain and tears flowed down. Xiao Ji didn't even bother to look at her. He cupped his hands and bowed in the direction of Wu Tao. "Elder Wu Tao, Lingling is still young and has a spoiled temperament." Those words were not sincere. They were said out of anger. "I hope you don't take offense." The forces of the Alchemist Union were all over the Nirvana realm. They were the target that countless big families and forces wanted to curry favor with. Even he, the emperor of a dynasty. If he offended the Alchemist Union. The Alchemist Union really wanted to destroy a royal family. There were definitely countless forces willing to work for them. In any case, Xiao Ji couldn't afford to offend this great Buddha. Xiao Ji's initiative to lower his head and apologize did not make Wu Tao's expression soften. Wu Tao's eyes were cold. She looked at Xiao Ji coldly and snorted, "You don't have to explain, Sovereign Beilan. If it weren't for Princess Beilan, I wouldn't have known that I'm such a person in the eyes of the Beilan royal family." No, it's not that. Elder Wu Yu, Lingling is just young and has been spoiled by me since she was young. That's why she spoke so rudely. Xiao Ji remembered that cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Even when he had heard that Wu Tao was certain that Yi Luo's pill was the heaven-restoring nether pill, he had not been this flustered. One's face reflects one's heart, and words come from one's heart. If it wasn't for the fact that one thinks that the royal family is supreme and is used to being arrogant and despotic, how could it be like this? Monarch Balin, do you still need me to say it? A clear and melodious voice rang out. That voice paused for a moment and continued with a light laugh. If there's no one intentionally guiding her, how would a child say? That elder Wu Yu wanted to climb up to Master Gui Wu. And how would she say? That elder Wu Yu had colluded with another country's spy. Everyone's gazes were fixed on the words that were said, on that red-robed young lady. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled into a smile, revealing an obvious ridicule. Her long and narrow eyes were filled with a mocking smile. Xia Ji was so infuriated by the young lady's ridicule that he started trembling. Chapter 2573. Yiqing Luo's words, Xia Ji's expression. This made everyone extremely certain that Yiqing Luo's words were true. For a time, the discussion stopped abruptly. None of the guests dared to speak again and get involved in this matter. He just kept glancing back and forth at those people. His silent gaze made people feel even more stifled. After Wu Tao heard Yiqing Luo's words, the expression on his face turned even colder and the gaze he shot towards Xia Ji was filled with icy intent. Great. What a great Northern Waves monarch. Since you despise me so much, then there's no need for me to stick to your Northern Waves royal family's cold ass. Xia Ji's body swayed and he staggered a few steps. His face was ashen. Wu Tao's words had clearly expressed his intentions. Henceforth, the Alchemy Union would no longer have any dealings with the Northern Wave Imperial family. Anyone who had anything to do with the Northern Wave Imperial family would be expelled by the Alchemy Union. This also meant that the major powers and clans that wanted to curry favor with the Alchemy Union would choose to sever their relationship with the Northern Wave Imperial family in order to hook up with the Alchemy Union. If he lost the support of the major families and factions, he would not be able to survive. How could the Northern Wave Imperial family continue to hold on? Xia Ji looked at Yiqing Luo's gaze as his murderous intent intensified. If it weren't for this bitch, their Northern Wave Imperial family would only be able to shine brightly at this birthday banquet. It was the center of attention. It was this bitch who destroyed the Northern Wave Imperial family, destroy everything he had. Xia Ji's eyes became colder and colder. The murderous aura lingered around his body. At this moment, Wu Tao directly grabbed the sparkling and translucent elixir in the white silk cloth on the table. He sneered and said, "This elder took the face of the imperial family into consideration and didn't say anything just now. These elixirs of yours, not to mention high-grade elixirs, they are at most 3 middle-grade elixirs. They can't even compare to the heaven-restoring serene pill. Yet, you still want to use them as the heaven-restoring serene pill to deceive Sect Master Yin. Do you really think that? Sect Master Yin doesn't know the apothecary and can't distinguish between the real and the fake." As soon as these words were spoken, it shocked the surrounding guests, and they all gasped. Monarch Beilon's birthday gift was fake. Such a sparkling, translucent, and glowing elixir was fake. And it couldn't even be considered a high-grade medicinal pill. Wasn't he treating Sect Master Yin like a fool and toying with her? You. How is this possible? How can this not be the heaven-restoring essence nether pill? Xia Ji was shocked by Wu Tao's words and immediately came back to his senses. He retorted angrily, "This is the heaven-restoring serene pill that I personally bought and personally supervised. It was refined by a master apothecary." Wu Tao sneered, "This elder can swear on the reputation of the Alchemy Union that these 3 pills of yours are definitely mid-rank pills. And Miss Ye's pill is indeed the returning Heaven Essence Serene pill. They even brought out the Alchemy Guild." Wu Tao's words were definitely true. Wu Tao was an elder of the Alchemy Union. There was no way they would use the Alchemy Union as a joke. Who would have thought? To think that Lord Beilon would send fake elixirs to Sect Master Yin. But, they were very curious, how would that little girl have the real heaven-returning essence nether pill in her hands? This was a precious pill that could only be seen once in 1,000 years. No. Absolutely impossible, absolutely impossible. Xia Ji's face was full of disbelief as he shook his head desperately. How could it not be the heaven-restoring essence nether pill? Chapter 2574. No. I didn't. Xia Ji's rebuttal sounded as though he lacked confidence. His face was pale as he stared at Yin Qinghao without blinking. His earlier high spirits had completely disappeared. This is the heaven recovering serene pill, how could it not be? Elder Wu Tao has already used the Alchemist Guild's reputation to swear, so how could it be fake? Yin Qinghao sneered. Why not North Wave Monarch also use the North Wave royal family's reputation to swear, then? Send North Wave Monarch and Miss Ye's pills over to the Alchemist Guild's chief for inspection. If Elder Wu Tao really slandered North Wave Monarch, then Qin Yu sect will be at North Wave royal family's disposal in future. Xia Ji's eyes widened. How much trust did he have in Wu Tao for him to make such a righteous promise? No matter how certain Xia Ji was that his pill was the real heaven-recovering serene pill, he was starting to doubt himself now. Looking at Xia Ji's hesitant expression, Yin Qinghao's expression softened. Looks like these few years, North Wave royal family has become more and more confident. This sect master can't afford to support North Wave royal family, in future. Please don't step into Qin Yu sect at all. He flicked his sleeves and gave a cold harumph. Housekeeper Yin, send the guest off. I won't. I won't. Xiao Lingling looked at the Qin Yu sect's guards who were walking towards them as she screamed sharply, "You're the one saying everything. You're just helping that slut. She's just a lowly commoner, how could she possibly have the real heaven-recovering serene pill?" Yi Qing Luo smiled as she looked at the frenzied Xiao Lingling. "This pill was given to me by my master." "You're lying. Who's your master? How could your master possibly have the heaven-recovering serene pill?" Xiao Lingling pointed at Yi Qing Luo furiously. "You're a spy from another country, you absolutely can't have the heaven-recovering serene pill. Uncle Monarch's pill is fake, yours might not be the real one. TSK. Is there something wrong with little Region Lord's brain? One moment you said I'm a lowly commoner, and the next moment you said I'm a spy from another country. You North Wave royal family really stuck all sorts of identities onto me." Yi Qing Luo sneered as her eyes were filled with ridicule. "You're a lowly commoner. You are a spy from another country. You bitch." Xiao Lingling was so angry that she couldn't think normally. She gnashed her teeth and cursed. The rage in her heart burned away her rationality. Xia Ji was so angry that he simply wanted to slap Xiao Lingling to death with one slap. As for Yi Qing Luo, who was standing by the side, she couldn't help but give a thumbs up to Xiao Lingling, this pig-like teammate. He should be so unreasonable. Only then would she be able to bring out her innocence. Looking at Xia Ji's increasingly ugly expression. The guards of the Qinhua sect had a stern expression on their faces as they demanded the Northern Billow royal clan's people to leave the banquet. The corners of Yi Qing Luo's lips curled up into an extremely shallow sneer. Xia Ji was about to leave the banquet under the forceful request of the Qinhua clan's guards. Yi Qing Luo slowly walked towards Wu Tao as she laughed softly. "Sect Master Yin, today is your birthday, so don't damage your health because of a small matter." Perhaps even the North Wave Monarch didn't know that the pill was fake. Everyone's vision floated towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. They were all puzzled. Why would this young lady speak up for the Northern Wave imperial family that had always been targeting them? Even Xia Ji was stunned. But at the next moment, Xia Ji raised his vigilance as his pair of sinister eyes stared at Yi Qing Luo. As though he was guessing what tricks Yi Qing Luo was going to play. Chapter 2575. The medicinal powder used to moisten medicinal pills was a kind of medicinal substance that protected medicinal pills. It could be used to protect the quality, medicinal effect, and the appearance of the pill. Generally speaking, ordinary alchemists would prepare some moisturizing medicinal powder on them. It was a very cheap medicine. Yi Qing Luo's words, although she was pleading for Xia Ji. But it was obvious that she was ridiculing Xia Ji as a monarch, but he was like a frog at the bottom of a well, unable to even recognize the cheap moisturizing medicinal powder. He was even deceived by others, thinking that it was a top-grade heaven-returning serene pill. Xia Ji was so angry that his ears turned red, but he had no choice but to accept the ridicule from the crowd. To be ridiculed, to become a laughing stock. At the very least, it was better than being accused of trying to deceive the sect leader of the Qinhua sect and treating him like a fool. He suppressed his anger as the corners of his lips curled into an extremely twisted arc. He bowed deeply towards Yin Qinghao, lowering his head, which he thought was noble. Sovereign Yin, I'm foolish, I've been deceived, mistaking this pill as the heaven-returning serene pill. I know my mistake. Every word seemed to be squeezed out from the gaps of his teeth. His eyes were scarlet red as his veins popped out. Yin Qinghao snorted coldly. As a monarch, you can even mess up such a thing, and still put on a complacent face to bully a young lass. It's really an eye-opener for me. Wu Tao's expression was displeased as his eyes turned cold and sharp. I am also very suspicious of Monarch Bei Lan's ability. The duo's humiliation made Xia Ji's expression turn gloomy, as though it was wrapped in a layer of shadow. His entire body tensed up as he endured the anger which was gushing out from his chest. Right, don't forget to pass me the royal family's pass. Yi Qing Luo added another stab with a smile. When Xia Ji heard Yi Qing Luo's voice, the anger in his eyes burned even more violently. He suddenly turned his head around as he stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo. His gaze seemed as though he wanted to skin Yi Qing Luo alive. However, Yi Qing Luo, who was stared at by this fierce gaze, was leisurely as she smiled sweetly. You must accept your loss, Monarch Bei Lan. Xia Ji's expression was distorted as his eyes were filled with rage as he gritted his teeth. I will pass the pass to you, Uncle Monarch. Xia Lingling looked at Xia Ji in astonishment. The slap on her cheek had tugged at her muscles, making her gasp in pain. Shut up. Xia Ji glared at Xia Lingling furiously. If it weren't for this pig-headed Xia Lingling, he wouldn't have lost his face like this today. Xia Lingling's eyes reddened from the roar. This was the first time she was scolded by her uncle, whom she had always loved dearly. Xia Ji didn't bother about her at all. He cupped his fists and said angrily, Sorry for disturbing Sect Master Yin's birthday banquet. I'll return to the palace first. As soon as he finished speaking, he walked past the guards of the Qinyu sect and strode forward. How could he still have the face to stay in the Qinyu sect? It didn't matter if he knew that the pill he gave was intentional or if he didn't know. The relationship between the royal family and the Qinyu sect was completely severed. Sovereign Balin. Lan Ling Nuo, who had been silent all this while, saw that her shield was about to leave and immediately called out, The matter regarding the elixir has been proven to be a misunderstanding, but, regarding the matter regarding Lady Ye's identity, we cannot let this matter rest. Xia Ji's footsteps halted as his brows creased tightly as he stared angrily at Lan Ling Nuo. But he saw Lan Ling Nuo giving a gentle smile. This concerns the safety of the northern continent, Sovereign Balin can't ignore it. Xia Ji was after all the monarch of a dynasty, so how could he not see through Lan Ling Nuo's schemes? Chapter 2576. Xia Ji had designs on Lan Ling Nuo's beauty. He loved every beautiful woman. However, it did not mean that he would compromise unconditionally just because of the woman's beauty. Lan Ling Nuo thought that she could use her face to use the Northern Wave imperial family to target Yi Luo. That would be a big mistake. Yi Luo, this woman was simply too unfathomable. If he insisted on fighting head-on, he definitely wouldn't be able to gain any advantage. Xia Ji's gaze swept across the first row of seats, the students of the Heavenly Academy, Tao Tao of the 3000 Peach Blossom Academy, and Gue Wu and Zhou Mo, who were sitting at the side and drinking tea silently. These people were obviously Yi Luo's supporters. However, when Lan Ling Nuo heard that Xia Ji didn't intend to help her and continued to target Yi Qing Luo, her expression suddenly changed. Then, a cold smile appeared on his face. The warlord mansion has fallen, and the Miaogu clan has become a pawn in Yi Luo's hands. Even the sect master of the Qinghua sect is standing on Yi Luo's side. Monarch Beilon, how long do you think you can last? Lan Ling Nuo's words caused Xia Ji, who was about to leave, to pause once again. His entire body stiffened and he clenched his fists tightly. He slowly turned around and stared at Lan Ling Nuo with a ruthless gaze. He didn't want to waste any more time with Yi Luo. However, he had to admit that Lan Ling Nuo's words struck the thing that he feared the most in his heart. Now, take advantage of Sect Master Yin's birthday banquet. All the seniors from various continents are present. As the North Wave's sovereign, you should investigate Yi Luo's identity thoroughly. This will serve as a warning to all the seniors. Isn't this the best of both worlds? Lan Ling Nuo continued to persuade when she saw that Xia Ji had been persuaded. Xia Ji lowered his head and pondered over Lan Ling Nuo's words. Yuan Zhan, who had received Lan Ling Nuo's signal, took a look at Yiqing Luo who was enjoying the show, took a deep breath and said sternly, "Monarch, East Lan Princess is right. You clearly saw the fate of my warlord mansion. Do you really want to see the Northern Wave imperial family reduced to the current warlord mansion?" His eyes became sharper and sharper. Yi Luo, that lowly wench, he obviously used the poison in Kuang Er's body to poison the Miao family's young lady. However, the Miao family is helping Yi Luo to clear his name. It's obvious that she's already standing on his side. For the first half of my life, I wholeheartedly fought on the battlefield for the great rivers and mountains of the Northern Wave continent. Now, for the sake of the Northern Wave continent, they will definitely fight to the death to capture Yi Luo. Echoing each other's accusations made Xia Ji's gaze towards Yiqing Luo filled with vigilance and hatred. The matter escalated to a dispute between the royal families of the continent. The surrounding guests who were watching the show naturally wouldn't easily open their mouths to get involved in this mess. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. There were also quite a number of people who kept staring in the direction of the Miaogu clan, as if wanting them to refute. However, Miao Yixiong and Miao Rongrong pursed their lips and lowered their heads in silence. This indirectly confirmed Yuan Zhan's words. Everyone's gaze towards Yiqing Luo was filled with probing. He seemed to be thinking. Was this girl purposely messing with the top forces of the Northern Wave continent so that she could destroy it? Under this strange atmosphere, the young girl, who was the center of attention, burst into laughter. She smiled. That elegant face was like a green lotus blooming. Rippling tears flashed past her charming eyes. It made her all the more charming and enchanting. East Lan Princess, to think that the royal family is something, as if the heavens are big and the earth is big, the most important person in the royal family, seems to be you. Chapter 2577. Lan Ling Nuo's expression turned cold. She gritted her teeth and said, "Do you dare to say that you didn't use every possible means to set up a series of plans against the War King Manor, the Miaogu clan, and the Northern Wave imperial family?" Her fingers were curled up, and her delicate body was shivering, but she still raised her head arrogantly. "Not only did you use your beauty to seduce the young sect master of the Qinghua sect, but you also seduced the young sect master of the Qinghua sect. You even made use of your own sister to seduce young Master Mo, all for the sake of getting Gue Wu to help you. Do you really think that no one knows what you've done?" Lan Ling Nuo had been observing the relationship between the representatives of the Heavenly Academy, Ghost Martial Artist and Yi Luo. Then he discovered. From the beginning of the birthday banquet until now, Zhou Mo continued to play with the girl in his arms. His actions showed that he was doting on the girl in his arms. Lan Ling Nuo immediately understood. Zhou Mo liked the girl called Kitty Li. Zhou Mo was also Gue Wu's only good friend. In other words, Yi Luo had used Kitty Li to seduce Zhou Mo. As a result, he managed to form a connection with the ghost martial artist. Otherwise, why would the martial arts fanatic Gue Wu, who was only interested in martial arts, come forward and stand up for a little slut? Lan Ling Nuo's words immediately received everyone's approval. Kitty Lee, who was confined in Zhou Mo's arms, also realized that her and Zhou Mo's playful behavior had caused Yiqing Luo to fall into a predicament. She immediately struggled to break free from Zhou Mo's embrace. Zhou Mo's arms tightened even more. His long and narrow almond-shaped eyes seemed to be dotted with thousands of stars. He bowed his head, his thin lips lightly touching Kitty Lee's ear. "Little wild cat, you ran down from my arms in such a hurry, didn't you confirm that woman's words?" Kitty Lee stopped struggling. "Don't worry, don't you believe in little Qing Luo's ability? Let's just sit and watch the show." Zhou Mo looked at the girl in his arms. Her bright eyes were sparkling, and she looked extremely cute. He couldn't help but kiss her eyes. Kitty Lee's body trembled slightly. She immediately raised her hand and hammered Zhou Mo's chest. Zhou Mo buried his head in her neck and laughed softly. His chest heaved up and down, and his devilishly charming face was full of smiles. The interaction between the two was obviously not affected by Lan Ling Nuo's words. It didn't seem like it either. The feeling of Kitty Lee seducing Zhou Mo. Lan Ling Nuo gritted her teeth in anger. "You still want to deny it?" "Deny?" Yiqing Luo's brows rose, the arc of her charming eyes deepened as she teased. "I don't even put you scums in my eyes. Do I need to waste time to plot against you?" She was smiling. Her pair of charming eyes were like stars, flickering with a dazzling luster. His words were filled with mockery. "To be honest, if I wanted the Northern Billow imperial family to change hands, it would be a trivial matter." Yiqing Luo's words were absolutely not to put on airs. Not to mention the fact that she was a member of the World Mercenary Group, just the authority that she had obtained from the General Hospital. On top of that, Sovereign Beilan had courted death himself today. He borrowed the authority of the headquarters to gather the forces of all the academies in the Northern Wave continent and casually exerted pressure. How long could the Northern Wave imperial family last? If it took more than 3 days, it would be considered her loss. Yiqing Luo's extremely arrogant words had completely infuriated Xia Ji. "Little silly lass, who gave you the guts to insult the royal family? You want to stir up trouble in front of me? I'm going to take your life." His expression sunk as he flew into a rage. His figure moved as he struck his palm towards Yiqing Luo's direction. As he waved his palm, the earth shook and the mountains shook. A strong, profound energy surged downwards. No one in the first row moved. Apparently, no one intended to save Yi Luo. Seeing that, Xia Ji's eyes turned sharp as his eyes were filled with wanton murderous intent. Looked like Gue Wu indeed didn't treat Yi Luo seriously. Then he would take this chance to kill her. This damned slut, how dare she humiliate him time and time again. Just as Xia Ji's palm wind was about to land on Yiqing Luo. Suddenly, a surge of profound energy that was like a surging tide directly struck Xia Ji's palm wind. In an instant, a terrifying and powerful pressure filled the entire hole. The guests present felt their hearts jolting fiercely. Chapter 2578. Xia Ji's body was thrown onto the ground by that majestic energy. He rolled several rounds. With a "wah" sound, he spat out a large mouthful of blood, staining his dragon robe red. He propped himself up as he stared weakly in front. A whirlwind brushed past his cheek. Xia Ji's eyes only managed to catch a glimpse of brilliant purple color. "Ah!" The surrounding guests cried out in shock as they couldn't help but stood up as they looked ahead in shock. Yiqing Luo had already thought of a way to deal with Xia Ji's palm strike. But before she could make a move, he felt a familiar aura seeping into his nose. Her petite body suddenly stiffened. Her eyes stared ahead in a daze. The man was dressed in a billowing purple robe, and as he walked, he drew an eerie and piercingly cold arc. His eyes stared straight at Yiqing Luo. His obsidian-like peach blossom eyes seemed to be embellished with resplendent starlight, dazzling Yiqing Luo's eyes. That face was as peerless as ever. With just a glance, she felt as if she was attracted by something, wanting to drown in his beauty. Yiqing Luo's throat was a little dry. Her pink lips trembled as her eyes gazed in delight at the man who was walking over, Xian. He was back. Was it his original self? Who was back? The man's footsteps were heavy and slow as he emitted a majestic and vigorous aura, oppressing the surrounding crowd in an overbearing manner. Until he stood in front of Yiqing Luo. His long arms stretched out as he hugged Yiqing Luo's petite body tightly. His strength was extremely strong. As though he wanted to rub her into his body. It was so big that Yiqing Luo found it hard to breathe. However, there was a smile on her face, and a thin layer of mist appeared on her beautiful eyes that were gleaming with light. The familiar sandalwood scent lingered around her nose. The familiar warmth enveloped everything about her. It was Ah Xian. Her Ah Xian was back. Overlord. It's the Overlord. Why would the Overlord? Why would he be here? It's really the Overlord. Absolutely. Absolutely. It can't be fake. The surrounding guests started to stand up as they shouted excitedly. They couldn't contain their excitement. Lord Dizun actually came to attend the Qinhua sect leader's birthday banquet. Compared to Gue Wu, this Dizun was even more mysterious and unpredictable. Wait. What is the relationship between His Majesty and Lady Yi? Some of the guests looked in disbelief at Dmo Xian, who was hugging Yiqing Luo tightly in his arms. There was a faint guess in his heart, but he didn't dare to say it out. The other guests were also shocked. They could no longer remain calm. Dizun. Xia Ji held his chest and his face was ashen. Xia Lingling and Lan Ling Nuo were so shocked that they jumped up from the ground. Their fingers trembled as they pointed at the two people who were tightly hugging each other. They could not believe what they were seeing. Dizun and that bitch Yi Luo. What was going on? How could Yi Luo be related to the Overlord? Furthermore, their relationship was clearly not ordinary. Lan Ling Nuo was the most shocked as her breathing was so hurried that she almost couldn't catch her breath. Impossible. How could the Overlord possibly be with that slut Yi Luo? He isn't, not with that slut Yiqing Luo. Her voice abruptly stopped. Yi Luo. Yiqing Luo. Dmo Xian. Could it be? Chapter 2579. Overlord. Xia Lingling bellowed unwillingly. She pushed away Lan Ling Nuo's stiff hand and rushed forward a few steps, pointing at Yiqing Luo. Her eyes were filled with hatred. Overlord, you must have been cheated by this woman. She is a fickle slut. Oh. Dmo Xian raised his brows, his narrow peach blossom eyes curved into a treacherous cold arc seeing Dmo Xian's reply. Xia Lingling's heart was thumping non-stop. She couldn't suppress the smile on her lips, her clenched fists were clenched in agitation. That slut, she seduced Master Gue Wu, and even seduced the young matriarch of Qin Yu sect in public. Xia Lingling's tone was filled with hatred. When Yin Yanxiu heard this, his face instantly turned pale. What nonsense are you talking about? The person in front of him was the legend of Nirvana Realm, the legend of Nirvana Realm. Looking at the atmosphere between Yi Luo and the Overlord. It was obviously the kind of relationship between a man and a woman. Said Yi Luo seduced him. Wasn't that the same as saying he and the Overlord were fighting over a woman? even if he really secretly admired Yi Luo. Now the overlord was standing here. How would he have the guts to talk about admiration? Dmo Xian's dark red thin lips slightly rose. His slender fingers gently hooked Yi Luo's chin. In his peach blossom eyes, there seemed to be circles of whirlpools, captivating one's soul, making one unable to escape. Seduced the young matriarch? He was obviously smiling. But the words he spat out were filled with an eerie chill. Even Yi Luo couldn't help but feel a chill down her spine, unable to maintain the smile on her face. Xiao Lingling's eyes lit up, wild with joy, thinking that she had provoked the relationship between the overlord and Yi Luo. She was getting more and more delighted and excited. Anyway, the royal family had already cut off all contact with Qin Yu sect. She didn't care about offending Qin Yu sect. Immediately, she looked at Yin Yanxiu with a cold smile. Her eyes no longer had any charming charm. If she hadn't seduced you, how could you possibly invite her to the birthday banquet personally? Yin Yanxiu, don't tell me that you have no improper thoughts towards Yi Luo. Yin Yanxiu opened his mouth to retort. But when he heard Xiao Lingling's last sentence, he couldn't refute it no matter what. It was this moment of hesitation. This made Xiao Lingling even more certain that her guess was correct. Look! Overlord, this is the woman you are protecting. With such a good backer like you, she's still flirting around. She's a bitch by nature. Ah! Before he could finish his sentence, Xiao Lingling only felt a strong gust of wind blowing towards her. Then, he felt a sharp pain on his face. She screamed in pain. Just as he opened his eyes, before he could even see what was happening in front of him clearly, Zhang Xian's eyes widened. Her chin seemed to have been pierced by something. With a "kacha" sound, it was unloaded. Ah dash! Xiao Lingling let out a blood-curdling scream. This sound was extremely short and it stopped abruptly. It was as if something had suddenly cut off his voice. He could not make any sound at all. At the same time, the surrounding guests started to draw in cold breaths. Their faces were filled with shock as their eyes widened in shock. They saw it with their own eyes. At the moment when Xiao Lingling screamed, a burst of profound energy turned into a sharp wind blade, directly cutting off Xiao Lingling's tongue. Blood spurted onto the ground. Chapter 2580. Lingling. Xiao Ji regained his senses from the shock as he looked at Xiao Lingling, who was covered in blood and lying on the ground, as he went into a daze once again. His eyes were bloodshot and the arm which stretched out towards Xiao Lingling started to bulge with green veins. Xiao Lingling was his sister. The only proof left behind. Because of him, his sister, his brother-in-law, all died a violent death in order to let him sit firmly on the North Wave Monarch's position. Because he had let his sister down. He had always indulged this niece of his and doted on her very much. Now, seeing Xiao Lingling's tongue being cut off and lying on the ground covered in blood, this made him recall several years ago when his sister was also lying on the ground covered in blood. How dare you talk about this lord's woman? Dmo Xian gave a cold smile as there wasn't any tenderness and sweetness in his eyes when he was facing Yi Luo. That pair of eyes which seemed to be blooming with peach blossoms. A stretch of icy cold, mixed with bloodthirsty malevolence. This is just a small lesson. Xiao Ji was filled with grief and indignation as he wanted to seek justice for Xiao Lingling, but under this icy cold gaze, it slowly subsided. His entire body stiffened as he looked at the young lady who was nestled in Dmo Xian's arms. The expression on his face started to distort bit by bit. No wonder, this Yi Luo was so arrogant and unrestrained, as though nothing was in his eyes. No wonder, even Gue Wu and Zhou Mo would stand on her side. No wonder, she had the real heaven-recovering serene pill on her. Because this Yi Luo was the Overlord's man. She and the Overlord had an intimate relationship. Since when did the Overlord have such a woman who could get close to him appeared by his side? Xia Ji still remembered it clearly. When Dmo Xian appeared, he even said one sentence. Yiqing Luo's guts was given by him. Xia Ji suddenly felt his legs turning into jelly as he half knelt on the ground as his face turned deathly pale. Finished. Everything was finished. Offended the Overlord. Offended the Imperial Palace. He had no chance to turn the tables. No wonder Yi Luo made a solemn vow earlier. It was just a matter of minutes for her to change the ruler. With the Overlord as her backing, she wanted to destroy the entire North Wave continent. No one could resist. Even this lord can't bear to hurt the person, how dare you hurt her? Dmo Xian's eyes were dark and gloomy. All of you have to pay the price. When his words fell, Dmo Xian glanced sideways, his gaze was fixated on Yiqing Luo without blinking. His deep peach blossom eyes flashed with a luster that made Yiqing Luo blush. He lowered his head and kissed her earlobe. His deep and mellow voice floated into her ears. She felt an indescribable itch all over her body, from her bones to her bones. I'll deal with you later. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure instantly left Yiqing Luo's side. His 5 fingers flew straight in the direction of Xia Ji. Ugh! Xia Ji let out a short exclamation. Dmo Xian gripped her neck tightly. His eyes were cold as he slowly walked past Lanling Nuo and Yuan Zhan, as well as the onlookers. Overlord. We didn't do anything, it's the North Wave monarch. North Wave royal family's people have been targeting. Right. We're just passers-by attending Sect Master Yin's birthday banquet. When the guests were swept by him, their legs couldn't help but turn to jelly. Chapter 2581. Xia Ji struggled desperately. The feeling of suffocation in his neck made his entire face turn red, and his eyes kept bulging out. From Dmo Xian's body, that overbearing oppressive force made his chest felt as though it was being squeezed by something. He was afraid. He panicked, wanting to escape from Dmo Xian's boundary. However, the 5 fingers on his neck were tightly clasped around his neck. He had no strength to struggle at all. Yuan Zhan and Lanling Nuo were so scared that their faces turned pale. His entire body was trembling non-stop. Dizun could even kill Monarch Beilan. Then, wouldn't it be even easier to kill them? You! What are you waiting for? Hurry up and save Lord Beilan. Don't tell me you want to see your king die. Lanling Nuo turned her head and saw the Imperial guards at the side. She hurriedly shouted at them. The royal guards looked at Dmo Xian and each and every one of them were scared witless, so how would they dare to save their own monarch? Furthermore, whether or not he could continue to be a monarch was a problem. Oh, Xia Ji's painful voice once again entered Lanling Nuo's ears. Xia Ji's face was already extremely distorted. It was a picture of death. Then, he looked at Xia Lingling, who was still twitching on the ground and had lost her tongue. Lanling Nuo's expression became increasingly unsightly. If her guess was right, the Overlord would definitely stand on Yiqing Luo's side. Kill everyone who had made Yiqing Luo unhappy. None of them could escape. Lanling Nuo's eyes flashed and she suddenly grabbed Yuan Zhan's arm. With a grave expression, she said, since Lord Dizun isn't going to let any of us go. In order to survive, we can only rely on ourselves. Yuan Zhan's body turned cold and stiff due to the fear of Dmo Xian. When he heard Lan Ling Nuo's words, he only turned his head stiffly. His face was still filled with unconcealable fear. Lan Ling Nuo's eyes flickered with a piercingly cold light. From the corner of his eyes, he glanced unnoticeably towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yuan Zhan's pupils shrank as he grabbed Lan Ling Nuo's hand. Their eyes met. He could see the ruthlessness in the other party's eyes. After that, the two of them swiftly separated. One left and one right, speedily flying towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Little bitch. Even if I die, I'll drag you down with me to hell. Yuan Zhan growled in anger. His eyes were filled with crazed killing intent. His palm was like an eagle's claw, grabbing towards Yiqing Luo's face. It seemed like he was ready to cut off all means of retreat. He had offended Dizun. Either way, he would die. Since Dizun thinks so highly of this girl, he would use this girl to threaten Dizun. If he could survive, then everyone would be happy. If he could not survive, he also wanted to kill this bitch who destroyed his war king's mansion and disturbed his plans. To tell the truth, Yuan Zhan and Lan Ling Nuo's speed towards Yiqing Luo wasn't considered to be very fast. However, Dmo Xian was still holding onto Xia Ji's neck. His face was devilishly charming and cold. Gue Wu, Heavenly Academy's representative, 3,000 peach blossoms and the rest were also sitting motionless. Yuan Zhan's heart was filled with an inexplicable feeling of unease. But, the arrow was knocked. He had no other way out. Yuan Zhan made up his mind. His eyes were filled with murderous intent as he unleashed his dark force. It had turned into a sharp blade. Go to hell. Chapter 2582. The young lady's lips curled into a faint smile. Facing the oncoming profound energy, the numerous blades formed from profound energy didn't seem to be bothered at all. A pair of charming eyes met Yuan Zhan's eyes with a faint smile. Just as Yuan Zhan's attack was about to land, the young lady's sweet laughter rang out once again, as melodious as a silver bell. Don't worry, I will send both of you to hell together. Her clear laughter was like a clear spring, extremely pleasing to the ears. But in Yuan Zhan's ears, it was like a curse that hastened his death. Yiqing Luo didn't give Yuan Zhan any chance to retreat. Her right hand lifted up gently. A red feather fan that was like a raging flame appeared on her slender fair fingertips. Devour, glower flame fan. Lan Ling Nuo's last trace of luck completely dissipated the moment the glower flame fan appeared. Her footsteps, which were closing in on Yiqing Luo, silently halted. Her body flashed and actually escaped from Yiqing Luo's attack range. Yuan Zhan was left alone there. Dmo Xian's woman owned the glower flame fan. Had a close relationship with the Heavenly Academy's students. Yi Luo. Yi. Qing. Luo. Other than that, there was no one else. This ordinary-looking slut was Yiqing Luo. Princess Donglan, trying to escape. A ghostly voice followed her ears like a shadow. Lan Ling Nuo's heart was filled with shock and astonishment. At this moment, the moment the voice rang, it turned into endless fear. A red figure like a raging flame flew past. Following closely, a strong force blocked Lan Ling Nuo's path. He forcefully pulled her back a few steps. Why is Princess Donglan running? Aren't you secretly misleading her happily? Let's continue now. Yiqing Luo's fingers shook, the feather fan opened and instantly closed, drawing out numerous sharp winged blades. Swish swish swish, a few tearing sounds were heard. Lan Ling Nuo only felt a chill. Numerous pieces of white muslin floated out from under that loose brocade robe. She screamed and immediately wrapped the brocade robe tightly. She could clearly feel herself under the brocade robe. Not a single strand of hair. The surrounding guests also saw the feather-like white gauze fluttering down. Strand by strand, they scattered on the ground. All of them had lustful gazes as they looked greedily in Lan Ling Nuo's direction. Although Yi Nianqiu's loose robe covered her petite figure, she was still able to see him. But everyone knew, at this moment, apart from the embroidered robe on Lan Ling Nuo's body, there was nothing else on her body. There was nothing else. Just imagining it made countless men smile sinisterly. Ah! Lan Ling Nuo was so embarrassed that her ears turned red. She screamed and hugged herself. Yuan Zhan could only feel his blood freezing in his body. He breathed with difficulty bit by bit. Earlier Yiqing Luo's gaze made him feel as though he was in an ice house. His mind, consciousness, and rationality froze in an instant. It was a fan that looked like a flame. A few exhibition rooms. Then, a cluster of flames, like an excited fire elf, cut through his chest and penetrated his flesh and bones. Pain, the excruciating pain made him unable to stand straight. His huge body staggered as he half knelt on the ground. Like a huge mountain, collapsing with a loud bang. Following that, he heard Lan Ling Nuo scream. He raised his eyes and saw Lan Ling Nuo frantically wrapping herself with her clothes, sitting on the ground in a sorry state. Chapter 2583. Yuan Zhan's pupils dilated bit by bit. Following that, he slowly shifted his focus to that young lady with a light smile. He knew that Yi Luo was very powerful. But he had not expected Yi Luo to be so powerful to this extent. He totally didn't see her strike clearly. He and Lan Ling Nuo had no leeway to retaliate. No wonder the overlord was so concerned about Yi Luo. But after he made his move, she couldn't even be bothered to look at him. Ha! He should have thought of it. A woman who could stand on the overlord. How could she be so easily suppressed by others? This scene also caused the surrounding guests to be in disbelief. They couldn't believe it at all. The seemingly harmless young lady was able to make the generals who had been on the battlefield for many years, as well as the East Lan princess, admit defeat with a snap of her fingers. Miao Yixiong and Miao Rongrong, who were far away in the crowd, exchanged glances with each other with a pale face. They were secretly rejoicing. Earlier, in order to get the antidote from Yiqing Luo, they resolutely chose to speak up for Yiqing Luo. Otherwise, the outcome of the North Lan royal family, it would be the outcome of their Gu poison family. Now, who dared to say that Yiqing Luo was another country's spy? Who dared to say that Yiqing Luo was plotting against the top forces in the North Lan continent, trying to break down the various forces in the North Lan continent? This was all bullshit. The way the crowd looked at Yiqing Luo no longer had any other emotions. They were all fawning over him and filled with respect. Dmo Xian took a look at the fainted Xia Ji, as though he was throwing rubbish, as he casually threw him out. After that, he wiped his hands fiercely and walked towards Yiqing Luo without turning his head back. The overlord, who was filled with a baleful aura earlier, was like the king of Hades from hell. The moment his gaze met Yiqing Luo, Zhang Xian's cold expression softened in an instant. All the coldness gradually melted. His lips curled upwards, the tenderness between his brows kept blossoming. Done playing? He had a unique magnetic voice as he asked in a low voice. Yiqing Luo's arms opened wide, hugging Dmo Xian's neck, throwing her petite body completely into his arms. Then, she raised her little face in front of his chest. The girl hooked her arms around his neck and narrowed her eyes. She stared at his face with a smile and said, "I've played enough." Dmo Xian's arm exerted a little more strength. The young girl was already in his arms. With steady steps, he slowly walked towards the first row of seats. Yiqing Luo giggled as she circled her arms around his neck, shaking her legs in his arms like a mischievous child. The joy and sweetness between her brows were obvious. In the crook of the man's arm, the girl's delicate body was steadily supported. She did not feel the slightest danger. All the way until he reached Gue Wu's side. Gue Wu took the initiative to stand up, before moving a seat away from Zhou Mo. He gave up the seat beside Yiqing Luo to Dmo Xian. Then, Dmo Xian directly carried Yiqing Luo and sat down. His hands moved to her slender waist and refused to let go. Yiqing Luo calmly nestled in Dmo Xian's arms. The gazes of the people around her were not important to her. Perhaps, in the eyes of other women, reputation was more important. But, she had already set her sights on Dmo Xian. Even though they hadn't gotten married yet. But getting married was merely a matter of time. Love and whatnot should be openly shown out. Chapter 2584. Yin Qinghao and Wu Yu stood by the table, filled with shock and astonishment. It was until Yiqing Luo called out to him that Yin Qinghao shifted his gaze away from the overlord in a daze. Carry him down. He was stunned as he suddenly understood the meaning of Yiqing Luo's words. Right. Carry him down. His eyes stared intently at Yiqing Luo, unable to suppress the agitation in his heart. From his own son's mouth, he knew that this young lady's identity was not simple. Adding on to the fact that her relationship with Gue Wu was not bad. He had always treated her with courtesy. He had not expected. She was actually the overlord's woman. Because of her, Gue Wu had personally attended his birthday banquet. Because of her, the overlord was here. His Qinhua clan. This birthday banquet, wouldn't it be famous throughout the entire Nirvana realm? A row of Qinhua clan's guards carried the bunch of royal family's people who were lying on the ground down. The spurting blood on the ground was also cleaned up. The entire main hall was still in dead silence. No one dared to speak first to break the silence. Yiqing Luo looked at Yin Qinghao's hesitant and uneasy look. She couldn't help but curse silently in her heart. Just how respectable was this Dmo Xian's status in the Nirvana realm? Even the sect master Yin Qinghao was so anxious and agitated. She couldn't help but laugh as she eased the atmosphere. Sect master Yin and everyone, please don't mind, just treat him as if he doesn't exist. This man's temper is very good, no need to be anxious. As she was saying that, she propped herself up. Stretching out both her hands, she pinched Dmo Xian's face fiercely. This action nearly caused the surrounding guests to fall from their seats. Their eyes widened as they looked anxiously at Dmo Xian. That face which was being pinched by the little woman's hands. They thought that the overlord would fly into a rage and throw the person in his arms out. After all, to pinch a man's face in front of so many people. This was not only improper. It was trampling on the overlord's dignity. However, they only saw the doting and gentle look in Dizun's eyes. He did not stop the girl in his arms from touching his face. See, I've already said that his temper is very good. Just carry on with the birthday banquet, don't mind it too much. Yiqing Luo tugged his lips, making him reveal a smile. Everyone, his forehead was covered in cold sweat. His mouth was full of dog food. Okay, they already knew. In Dizun's heart, the lady named Yi Luo was a special existence. The overlord doted on her to the core. Of course, the overlord would be nice to her. But, they weren't her. Continue to celebrate Sect Master Yin's birthday as if Dizun doesn't exist. They really couldn't do it. Just the thought of sitting in the same place as Dizun and breathing the same air was enough to make one's heart tremble. Their legs went soft, and they were so nervous that they couldn't even speak. Cough, cough, cough. Yin Qinghao looked at the crowd's astonished, shocked, envious and various expressions. He cleared his throat and withstood the pressure. Since Miss Yi has already said so, then let's carry on as usual. If during this period, the Overlord has anything that you don't like, just let me know and I will definitely do my best. After he finished his words, he looked at Dmo Xian anxiously. Dmo Xian lowered his head as he gazed at the person in his arms, not saying a word. Displaying his nobility and aloofness to the extreme. Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes as she tugged at his robes. Chapter 2585. Wife, slave. In everyone's mind, these two words appeared at the same time. Immediately, they all looked towards the Overlord. That look of pampering. That look of unconditional promise to any of Yiqing Luo's conditions. The Overlord was definitely a wife-slave. Since the Overlord had already spoken, Yin Qinghao then carefully let the birthday banquet continue. But everyone was still unable to be as comfortable as before. Yiqing Luo didn't care whether those people were comfortable or not. Her heart was filled with the joy of Dmo Xian returning to her side. Moreover, he had appeared in front of her like a god, protecting her and protecting her. Her young lady's heart was swelling. She sat up and clung to his chest. She raised her head and smiled. Ah, Xian, you're giving me so much face. Dmo Xian lowered his head, his dark eyes were like a lake, gazing deeply at her smiling face. So, where's the reward? Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes curved deeper. She hooked Dmo Xian's neck with one hand. She generously offered her pink lips to him. Dmo Xian's eyes dimmed as his arms suddenly increased the strength. Yiqing Luo's petite body, almost without any gap, clung tightly to the man's burning hot body. The scorching heat, through the clothes, seemed to be burning her skin. Yiqing Luo could even feel it clearly. The man's change. Her cheeks were slightly stained with a shade of red, her little hand grabbed his collar, trying to push him away. But Dmo Xian kissed her even deeper. At the other end of the seat, a handsome gentleman dressed in a bamboo-colored brocade robe, crushed the wine glass in his hand. A pair of deep and gentle eyes seemed to be covered with a thin layer of mist. Young matriarch. Great Elder Gu heard the sound of the wine glass shattering, and jumped in shock. Gu Jingyu's gaze looked straight ahead, deeply hugging and kissing, as if there were only the two of them in the world. His pupils contracted bit by bit. Great Elder Gu called out a few times, but didn't get any response from Gu Jingyu. Looking at Gu Jingyu's palm, it was covered with blood after the porcelain was pierced. He immediately grabbed Gu Jingyu's hand, young matriarch. Gu Jingyu's eyes were still a little dazed. He glanced at Grand Elder Gu in a daze, then chuckled and shifted his gaze back to the girl who was smiling like a flower not far away. His heart felt as if it had been ruthlessly stabbed by something. It was so painful that he couldn't even feel the stinging pain of his palm being pierced by porcelain. So, her fiancé was Dizun. The Overlord who was regarded as a myth and a legend by everyone. If it was someone else, he might even be able to openly declare war on her fiancé. He had snatched Yi Luo away in broad daylight. But, that fiancé, that man, was the Overlord. He had no chance of winning. They didn't even have the qualifications to fight for it. Just as he was feeling sentimental, Gu Jingyu suddenly felt a gust of cold wind pour into his body through his collar. He shuddered. An indescribable chill invaded his entire being. Gu Jingyu wanted to search for the source of the cold air. That chill, however, was cut off. All right, stop fooling around. Yiqing Luo buried her head in Dmo Xian's arms. Although she didn't care about other people's gazes. But no matter what, she was still a girl. In front of so many people, kissing, hugging and raising up high, she could accept it. But the kiss was inseparable, and she was about to lose control from his teasing. Chapter 2586. Dmo Xian chuckled. His chest rose and fell, shaking her face. The next moment, the man's slender fingers gently caressed her cheek. 5 fingers, slightly closed. She lifted her blushing face slightly. 4 eyes met. Under the deep gaze of those shimmering peach blossom eyes, Yiqing Luo suddenly felt her face heating up. Damn it! Was it because she hadn't seen Xian for a long time? It was just a casual glance. It was enough to flirt with her so much. Yiqing Luo expressed that as the queen, she must not be afraid at this moment. She raised her hands and was about to hug Dmo Xian's neck to launch a counterattack. Her hands were held firmly in Dmo Xian's palms. Yiqing Luo couldn't struggle and simply fell into his arms, lifting her eyelids to glare at him. He was slightly startled by what he saw. Dmo Xian's eyes were filled with complex emotions that she couldn't understand. His brows were filled with a smile, but it wasn't a deep smile. Ah, Xian, why? She hadn't finished her question. But her lips were gently pressed by the man's slender fingers. When I wasn't around, how many rotten peach blossoms did you attract? His eyes flickered, his dark red thin lips raised into an extremely shallow arc. But Yiqing Luo could clearly feel the jealousy under Dmo Xian's smile. Her man could really knock over the vinegar jar anytime and anywhere. If you can't explain clearly, I'll deal with you ruthlessly. Dmo Xian got close to her face, the arc on his lips added a hint of evil. Yiqing Luo. Was he looking for an excuse to do something improper to her? But looking at Dmo Xian's serious expression, Yiqing Luo still explained obediently. Yin Yanxiu only saw Gue Wu's invitation, and Gue Wu and I were in the same carriage, so when he picked Gue Wu up, he also picked me up. Dmo Xian raised his brows. That's it. What else can there be? Yiqing Luo pursed her lips, looking at Dmo Xian's disbelieving expression, she frowned slightly. That's it. Dmo Xian inched closer, until her pupils were filled with his handsome and elegant face, before he finally stopped. Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with the man's incomparably handsome face. That pair of obsidian-like peach blossom eyes gleamed, causing her heart to beat wildly. You. What else do you want? Yiqing Luo's cheeks turned slightly red from his stare. She wanted to shift her body away, but Dmo Xian's grip tightened. He narrowed his peach blossom eyes, and the flowing light in his eyes stirred in a dark and mysterious way. His scorching gaze made Yiqing Luo's heart beat wildly uncontrollably. It was clear that if she didn't explain herself clearly, she wouldn't be able to leave. She gritted her teeth and glared at him bashfully. With such an outstanding man like you by my side, good-looking, powerful, and giving me a sense of security, being able to ascend to the heavens and dive into the earth, capable of doing anything, do you think I'd be interested in any other lousy suitors? A flurry of praises successfully pleased Dmo Xian. It also greatly satisfied a certain man's self-esteem. The dark clouds on the face with the strange smile finally dispersed, revealing a satisfied smile. He let go of her face, put his arms around her waist, and leaned back slightly. His gaze seemed to be looking towards a certain direction. His eyes were filled with complacency and provocation. Yiqing Luo was puzzled, and was about to follow Dmo Xian's gaze. But the man suddenly straightened his body. Her face bumped against his chest. The man's low and hoarse voice rang beside her ears, I want to eat something. Chapter 2587. Feed me. The man raised an arm and propped it on the table as he looked at her lazily. Yiqing Luo blushed. Eat it yourself if you want. Shouldn't he be the one feeding her? Dmo Xian's fingers on her waist moved unintentionally as he said lazily, it's especially delicious if you feed me. Clearly, it was just a flat tone, saying this sentence. But when Yiqing Luo heard it, it somehow felt a sense of teasing. She didn't know if she was thinking too much. The word eat from Dmo Xian's mouth somehow felt that he wasn't talking about eating things. Especially when the man's fingers caressed her waist. Yiqing Luo expressed her surrender as she reached out for the exquisite pastries on the table and grabbed a piece, stuffing it into Dmo Xian's mouth. Stuffing action was absolutely not gentle. On the contrary, it was extremely rude. While stuffing, she stared at him with a pair of charming eyes. As if she was saying angrily, eat eat eat, eat you to death. That look was extremely adorable. Dmo Xian smiled as he allowed Yiqing Luo to stuff that piece of pastry into his mouth. The fragrant and sweet smell of the pastry seeped into his nose. It was also mixed with a young lady's fragrance. Looking at Yiqing Luo's adorable expression, Dmo Xian's eyes suddenly flashed. Just as Yiqing Luo was about to retract her hand, he suddenly opened his mouth and gently bit the young lady's delicate fingers. The two of them were very close. Dmo Xian could clearly feel the petite body of the person in his arms trembling slightly. A teasing smile flashed past his eyes as the tip of his tongue stuck out and swept over her fingers. Ah! Yiqing Luo's cheeks suddenly turned crimson red as she immediately withdrew her hand and stared at him. Ah Xian. Can you be a little more serious? If I'm not serious, the current you would no longer have the energy to stare at me. Dmo Xian's eyes curved as he smiled, his low and hoarse voice was full of seductive charm. Yiqing Luo's face turned even redder. She expressed that she really couldn't win against this deranged beast in words. Driving when she wasn't paying attention. Flirting when she wasn't paying attention. Could they still have a pleasant, normal conversation? She was so embarrassed that she flew into a rage. She lowered her head and looked at the residue on her fingers. She could still feel the man's warm touch on them. Her face turned even redder. Lowering her head, she refused to pay any attention to Dmo Xian. Looking at the person in his arms, he was extremely shy. Dmo Xian laughed as he hugged her body tightly. Out of the corner of his eye, he glanced at a certain place. That was the place where the Wind Valley sect represented. The person he was looking at was the young master of the Wind Valley sect, Gu Jingyu. The corner of his mouth curled into a cold smirk. His perceptive ability was very high. As soon as he entered the banquet, he felt a gaze staring at him from the moment he appeared. That gaze was filled with intense hostility. Following that, he looked at Gu Jingyu's gaze when he looked at Yiqing Luo. What else did Dmo Xian not understand? Sha wanted his woman. His little Luo would only belong to him. Let that rotten peach blossom watch him and his little Luo, being so lovey-dovey. Dmo Xian hid the chilly provocation in his eyes. When he looked at Yiqing Luo again, it was filled with deep affection. Wind Valley Sect's representative seat. Gu Jingyu sat stiffly on the ground. His eyes widened in disbelief. On a closer look, he could see that his body was trembling continuously. He saw the provocative gaze from the overlord. Chapter 2588. So, Dmo Xian did it on purpose to let him see. The sweetness between him and Yi Luo. To make him give up completely. He had to admit it. When he saw Yi Luo nestling in Dmo Xian's arms, feeding him pastries personally and playing with him, his heart felt a sharp pain as if it was stabbed by a sharp knife, but at the same time, he was very clear that there was no possibility between him and Yi Luo. Yi Luo was only like a real woman in front of Dmo Xian. He saw Yi Luo's lips, a sincere smile. He saw Yi Luo's face, a blissful and sweet expression. He saw Yi Luo, like an ordinary young lady, snuggling in her lover's arms, shy and playful. He saw all of these, no matter how hard he tried. And absolutely could not see such an expression on Yi Luo's face. He still remembered. When they were in Bu family village. Elder T misunderstood that they were a young couple. Misunderstood that they were going to Saint Spring to pray for children. She had never been shy before. But in Dmo Xian's arms she would reveal a real woman's shy expression. Gu Jingyu helplessly clenched his fists tightly. After that, he shut his eyes helplessly. Really? Give up. Give up on him till now, after so much difficulty, he finally had a change of heart. Young sect master, you. Don't tell me that towards that lady. Great Elder Gu who was beside him had been paying attention to Gu Jingyu's expression, and immediately his face sunk as he asked in shock. Gu Jingyu's body, which was leaning against the back of the chair, became increasingly stiff. He remained silent. But coincidentally, it also verified Great Elder Gu's guess. Great Elder Gu's face sunk as he shouted sternly, "Don't mess around. There are many women under the heavens, you absolutely cannot touch that lady." But, no matter what he said, Gu Jingyu kept his eyes closed, refusing to talk to anyone. Great Elder Gu's frown became even tighter. A pair of gloomy eyes shuttled back and forth between Yiqing Luo and Gu Jingyu. Lil Luo, Dmo Xian didn't know how many times he had called out her name. But the young lady refused to bother about him. Looked like she was really shy. It was true that he was angry out of humiliation. He softened his tone and coaxed gently, "Lil Luo, I haven't seen you for a full 23 days. I miss you. I miss you so much that I'm going crazy. It wasn't easy to return to your side, my entire body is missing you." He was speaking words of love in a serious manner. Amidst the words of love, he did not forget to add a few words to seduce her. This man, it was really infuriating and funny. Yiqing Luo didn't know how to ridicule him. "If you continue to ignore me, I will." Seeing that Yiqing Luo still refused to raise her head, a trace of craftiness flashed past Dmo Xian's eyes. The body of the person in his arms stiffened slightly. It seemed to be full of rage. The moment he said something out of line, she looked like she was about to lash out at him. Dmo Xian leaned close to her ear. His low and hoarse voice was mellow like fine wine, intoxicating one's heart. "Wife. Your husband knows his mistake. F***ck. F***ck. What the F***ck, this ultimate move was too much of a cheat." Yiqing Luo's fingers instinctively gripped Dmo Xian's collar tightly. Her cheeks turned red with a whoosh under this murmur. She raised her head and stared angrily at him. "Who's your wife? Don't mess around." The word "call" had yet to come out from her mouth. She went into a daze. What she met was the man's pair of shimmering peach blossom eyes, overflowing with brilliant colors, extremely resplendent. His eyes were filled with tenderness, as though he was carrying a pool of peach blossom spring water. Chapter 2589. Have you forgiven your husband? Looking at Yiqing Luo's flushed cheeks, her eyes filled with astonishment as she stared at his face in a daze, that adorable look. A certain man's pride had once again received a huge satisfaction. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes stared at him resentfully, displaying a little girl's coquettish attitude. It's not impossible to forgive you, but... At the birthday banquet, stop fooling around. They were the focus of attention. Quite a number of people's gazes were placed on them. Small fights, sweet love, she didn't mind showing it to those people. But... if it was too much... she didn't have the hobby of a live broadcast. How would I dare to disobey my wife's orders? Dmo Xian put on an easygoing look, his shimmering peach blossom eyes filled with warmth. Yiqing Luo pouted coquettishly as she stared at him, before shifting her gaze onto the birthday banquet. The moment she lifted her eyes, she met with a pair of jealous and hateful eyes. His gaze was filled with resentment. When Yiqing Luo's gaze met with that gaze, the owner of that pair of eyes then hurriedly averted her gaze as she lowered her head. Miao Rongrong. Yiqing Luo raised her brows as her lips curled into an interesting arc. She wasn't surprised that Miao Rongrong hated her out of jealousy. If it wasn't for the poison on Miao Rongrong, restraining her. Probably. Miao Rongrong had long been the same as Lan Ling Nua and Xiao Ling Ling, not letting go of any chance to humiliate her. Yiqing Luo touched her chin as she gave a meaningful smile. It could be said that the poison she planted on Miao Rongrong had saved the entire Miao Gu family. Otherwise, they would have been carried out together with the Northern Wave's royal family. There would definitely be people from the Miao Gu family. But apparently, Miao Rongrong didn't think so. Looking at Miao Rongrong's jealous and hateful expression, yet extremely fearful of her, not daring to show it in front of her, Yiqing Luo expressed that it was extremely satisfying. She liked to see the other party being annoyed by her, yet unable to get rid of her. Yiqing Luo's complacency naturally fell into Miao Rongrong's eyes. Little slut. Miao Rongrong gritted her teeth as she cursed in a low voice. Miao Jingwei, who was at the side, quickly grabbed her arm. Do you want the Miaogu clan to become the current Northern Wave imperial family? Miao Rongrong was so infuriated that her face turned red, but she was afraid of Dmo Xian's presence, so she could only suppress all the words in her throat. Rongrong. Miao Yixiong, who had been silent all this while, suddenly spoke up. His gaze was sharp as he stared at Dmo Xian without blinking. Miao Rongrong pursed her lips and returned to Miao Yixiong's side, calling out in a low voice, "Father." On the surface, the father-daughter relationship between Miao Yixiong and Miao Rongrong could be described as a model father-daughter relationship. The father was kind and the daughter was filial and spoiled. However, they all knew very well what the truth was. In the end, they were just using each other. Once the other party no longer had any value to him, they would definitely not hesitate to abandon the other party and seek the greatest benefits for themselves. Do you want Dizun or not? Miao Yixiong's voice was cold, with a hint of determination. Miao Rongrong's eyes widened. Father, you mean, if you can become Dmo Xian's woman, and make Dmo Xian listen to your orders? Just a mere Yi Luo, nothing to be afraid of. Miao Yixiong's eyes were raging with a storm. His words bewitched Miao Rongrong as she was extremely tempted. I want. Miao Rongrong clenched her fists tightly as her gaze shifted onto Dmo Xian. How could she not want such a peerless man? If today, the person standing beside Dmo Xian was her, then... Chapter 2590. Alright then. When the birthday banquet is over, we'll ask for the antidote as an excuse. Miao Yixiong lowered his voice, his eyes cold and sinister. Hearing Miao Yixiong's words, Miao Rongrong's eyes gradually widened as joy and excitement surfaced in her eyes. He kept nodding his head, indicating that he would follow Miao Yixiong's orders. They were all staring at him openly. How could the two of them, with their superb perception, not sense it? Yiqing Luo frowned slightly as she shot a sideways glance at Miao Rongrong. At this moment, the woman was staring at the two of them with shining eyes. What are the Miao people trying to do this time? Yiqing Luo was extremely unhappy with Miao Rongrong's gaze. Dmo Xian locked her waist as he smiled lightly. No matter, if you're unhappy, just bring her back to the West Continent by force. I have plenty of ways to make her help Long Yunzhan suppress the parasite poison. Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes at him. Honey trap. I'll only use this trick on you. He moved closer to her lips. His low and husky voice made her weak all over. The next moment, Dmo Xian's long arm tightened and her delicate body immediately fell into his arms. His handsome face was reflected in her eyes at such a close distance. A honey trap, these three words flashed past Yiqing Luo's mind. She deeply expressed that she really could not resist Dmo Xian's honey trap. Looking at the little woman's bashful look, Dmo Xian couldn't hold back as he lowered his head and gave her a light peck on her pink lips, his fingers sinking into her fine black hair. So, Lil Luo, don't worry, I will not attract any rotten peaches, flowers. Yiqing Luo expressed, why did she feel that this man emphasized on the three words rotten peach blossom? Was he hinting at something? The birthday banquet lasted for about 2 hours. The atmosphere in the hall finally eased up. Everyone could feel that Di Zun had placed all his attention on the girl. He didn't care about their existence at all. Everyone loosened up. Gradually, some of the more daring people began to let their own daughters go and perform. All kinds of talents, colorful and dazzling. These high-ranking officials and nobles were all thinking the same thing. Since Di Zun also needed a woman by his side. Their daughter was definitely prettier than Yi Luo. Although he was not as strong as Yi Luo. However, Di Zun was already strong enough. Even if he didn't need his own woman, he still needed to be strong enough to make people's hair stand on end. Women should be as gentle as water, and it was enough for them to accept everything about a man. After those young ladies saw Dmo Xian, their hearts had already fallen onto him. He looked at Yi Luo's face, which could barely be considered delicate and pretty. One by one, the gorgeously dressed young ladies suddenly felt their confidence rising. Yi Luo, who was not particularly good-looking, was doted on by His Majesty. If it was them, the Overlord would definitely pamper them to the heavens. As a result, there was an endless stream of shocking and dazzling talents. However, these people were destined to make the wrong calculation. Because, no matter how amazing and dazzling their talents were, from the beginning till the end, Dmo Xian had never shifted his vision away from Yiqing Luo. His gaze seemed to be glued onto Yiqing Luo. He couldn't bear to leave for even a moment. The birthday banquet had turned into a battle of beauty and beauty. Yin Qinghao, who was sitting on the main seat, looked at those young ladies, using the excuse of birthday celebration to perform all kinds of talents in an attempt to seduce the Overlord. Chapter 2591. Her ears were filled with melodious music and the entire hall was bustling with noise and excitement. Yiqing Luo nestled in Dmo Xian's arms, as though she was about to fall asleep in his arms. Until a burst of cheers woke Yiqing Luo up. She lazily opened her eyes and looked towards the center of the hall. The surrounding music had already been replaced by an extremely light and cheerful tune. It was different from the melodious tune which those young ladies danced earlier. It had a hint of exotic flavor. Following that, dancers dressed in dance dresses swayed their waists as they slowly entered the hall. The dancing dresses these dancers wore were also full of exotic charm. Their upper bodies were tightly clinging to their bodies, as though they were wearing a tube-top gold-colored dress. It was extremely short, only reaching to the waist, revealing their tummies. Their lower bodies were wearing the same color long skirt, reaching to the knee, as though a golden flower had bloomed. The outer layer was covered with a layer of golden chiffon, which made their graceful bodies indistinctly visible, extremely seductive. Along with the dancers swaying, their skirts fluttered, looking extremely beautiful. This dance was filled with exotic flavor and was filled with a fresh feeling. Instantly, it attracted numerous cheers from the crowd. Just as Yiqing Luo raised her eyes and looked towards the center of the hall, an even louder cheer and cheers resounded throughout the entire hall. She saw a lady dressed in the same style as the dancers, but with a different color, descending from the sky. She was dressed in a red dance dress and a red chiffon, which made her beautiful figure appear even more alluring. She held on to the hair of a different race, her wrists and ankles were all adorned with rings of bright-colored accessories, giving off a crisp tinkling sound. When she saw that bright and beautiful face clearly, Yiqing Luo's entire being awoke. This alluring lady who was dancing in the middle of the hall. Wasn't it Miao Rongrong from the Miaogu family? She, such a proud and arrogant lady, was about to take part in the sacred maiden selection. She actually danced in public on this occasion. Yiqing Luo expressed that although she wasn't familiar with Miao Rongrong, but based on her character, she knew from her interactions. Miao Rongrong would absolutely not lower herself to perform in front of so many guests. And in such an alluring manner. The dance from the Miao tribe made everyone feel fresh. Furthermore, Miao Rongrong was the eldest daughter of the Miao tribe and the future holy maiden of the Miao tribe. Everyone naturally gave him face. The cheers went on and on. As she was jumping, Yiqing Luo sensed something strange. Miao Rongrong danced gracefully, constantly changing her movements. Then, as he stroked his hair flirtatiously, his gaze was directed directly at her. No, he was looking at Dmo Xian. Yiqing Luo abruptly sat up straight. She narrowed her eyes and stared at Miao Rongrong. Miao Rongrong noticed her gaze. Instead of hiding, she raised her brows in provocation and unscrupulously flashed a coquettish smile at Dmo Xian. Yiqing Luo's eyes widened, her little hand circled around the man's body and pinched his waist fiercely. Is this what you meant by not attracting rotten suitors? Dmo Xian's eyes revealed a puzzled expression, as though he didn't understand the meaning of Yiqing Luo's words. Yiqing Luo raised her head and both her hands pinched Dmo Xian's cheeks. His gaze was fixed on her from beginning to end. This knowledge made the jealousy in Yiqing Luo's heart dissipate a little. But the minute she thought of those women expressing their goodwill to Dmo Xian, she felt extremely uncomfortable. Chapter 2592. Dmo Xian's gaze lingered on Miao Rongrong for a moment. Very quickly he raised his palm and held Yiqing Luo's little hand. Following that, his gaze fell onto Yiqing Luo once again. Seeing Yiqing Luo puffing her cheeks in anger, her brows were filled with an unhappy expression. His lips curled up into a devilish smile. His little Luo, was jealous. Jealousy didn't mean that he didn't trust her. It wasn't that he wasn't confident in himself. But because he cared. Because he loved her so deeply. Therefore, there was no room for even a speck of sand. Just like how he did not want to see anyone. Xiao missed Lil Luo air. Just like how Lil Luo didn't want anyone to miss him. You're still laughing. Yiqing Luo stared at him angrily as she pinched his face fiercely. Did you see a beauty throwing flirtatious glances at you and fell for her? Dmo Xian allowed her to do whatever she wanted as the smile on his face deepened. He met her resentful eyes and chuckled. No, I'm washing my eyes, he said word by word. His voice was gentle and magnetic. His burning gaze. It was as if it had turned into a soft feather, slowly drifting into her heart. In her heart, it was restless. He glanced at Miao Rongrong. He immediately looked at her. He said he was washing his eyes. She had to admit that these 3 words completely pleased her. Her mood instantly became joyful. She arched her eyebrows and snorted. That's more like it. The 2 of them looked at each other, smiling sweetly. Pink bubbles bubbled in their eyes. Because of Miao Yixiong's words, Miao Rongrong had already treated Dmo Xian as her own man. His actions and gaze were almost completely obvious. She was interested in Dizun. Just now, Dmo Xian looked at her. Let her heart, unable to control the crazy beating. Countless young ladies performed. The overlord didn't even bat an eyelid. And the overlord only looked at her. She knew it, with her appearance. With her position in the Miao tribe. The overlord will definitely like her. Yi Luo, that slut. How dare he seize her man? But, when he thought of the fact that his antidote was still in that slut's hands, she could only suppress the jealousy in her heart. Humph, when the overlord is completely infatuated with her and only belongs to her. Let's see how she's going to deal with that bitch. The dance ended amidst the cheers of the crowd. The surrounding Miao tribe dancers had already retreated. Miao Rongrong was still standing in the field. The breeze fluttered her red dance dress and red chiffon. Her exquisite and well-proportioned body was faintly discernible and extremely alluring. The corners of her mouth curled up into a charming smile. Her hand moved, and a white jade wine cup appeared out of nowhere. She swayed her hips and walked towards the first row of seats with graceful steps. The cheers in the surroundings gradually died down. When he realized what Miao Rongrong was going to do, they all held their breaths and watched this scene nervously. Many of the young ladies clutched their handkerchiefs nervously. They were all looking forward to Dizun's reaction. Sure enough, Miao Rongrong held the wine glass and stopped in front of Dmo Xian. She bent her knees slightly and made a gesture. Her eyes were almost greedily staring at Dmo Xian's peerless face. Her eyes were filled with infatuation. Just thinking that this man was going to belong to her. Her heart couldn't stop pounding. Chapter 2593. Silence, a deathly silence, silence for a moment. The smile on Miao Rongrong's face froze. She stared at Dmo Xian's side profile, his handsome face was flawless. She took a deep breath and took another step closer. Her body leaned against the long table in front of Dmo Xian. Miao Rongrong stretched out her hand and passed the wine glass in her hand to Dmo Xian. Rongrong is so dedicated in her dance, Overlord, can you have a drink with Rongrong? She pinched her voice as she spoke coquettishly. The jade-like fingers and the white jade wine glass matched each other. It accentuated the lady's skin even more. If it was any other man, he would probably not be able to control himself as he grabbed this jade-like hand and bit it into his mouth. This hand stretched over. Just happened to stretch out between Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian. No matter what, Dmo Xian must have seen this hand. Yiqing Luo's slender brows rose slightly as she smiled at the hand and looked at Miao Rongrong. Between her long and narrow eyes, there was a hint of ridicule and mockery. Miao Rongrong tensed up when she was stared at by Yiqing Luo. She felt chills running down her spine as all her courage was almost crushed. However, she quickly adjusted her mentality. She was going to be the Overlord's woman soon. Very soon, the Overlord would belong to her alone. By then, she would make Yi Luo die however she wanted him to die. The viciousness in Miao Rongrong's eyes flashed past. Her red lips rose as she pretended not to see Yiqing Luo. She stared at Dmo Xian and smiled coquettishly, Overlord. Just have a drink with Rongrong. Her coquettish voice dragged the last syllable. It could simply melt one to death. However, Dmo Xian's expression didn't change at all. Looking at the swaying arm in front of him, blocking his intimacy with Yiqing Luo. He frowned slightly. Following that, he stretched out his hand. Miao Rongrong saw him moving and her face lit up as her lips uncontrollably curled upwards. Indeed. The Overlord had special feelings for her. Seeing the Overlord's hand getting closer to her, Miao Rongrong's body relaxed and became softer. As though she could fall into Dmo Xian's arms any time. However, Dmo Xian's hand skipped over the wine glass that Miao Rongrong handed over and grabbed the 2 bamboo chopsticks on the table. Bang! With a crisp sound, the porcelain pieces shattered. Ah! Then, there was a blood-curdling scream. Miao Rongrong felt a sharp pain in her arm. The wine cup in his hand flew out and shattered into pieces. Miao Rongrong stood rooted to the ground in a daze, one hand supporting her seemingly broken arm, as she looked at Dmo Xian in disbelief. There were 2 obvious red marks on her fair, jade-like wrist. It was the marks left by the 2 bamboo chopsticks in Dmo Xian's hands. Dmo Xian casually threw the chopsticks on the ground, as if the chopsticks were contaminated with some germs, extremely disgusted. Then, he lazily lifted his peach blossom eyes. His inky black eyes shone with a bloodthirsty light. Zun. Miao Rongrong trembled as he stared at her. Dmo Xian frowned, his thin lips moved slightly and his voice was icy cold. Who are you? Don't disturb me while I coax my wife. The surrounding guests were extremely anxious and looking forward to hearing the Overlord's reply. Instantly, they couldn't hold it in as they burst out laughing with a pft sound. The Miao family's eldest young miss obviously stroked her hair coquettishly and threw herself into his arms. And even showed off her flirtatious attitude, as though she wanted to take down the Overlord. And even took the initiative to toast to the Overlord. She self-directed and acted out such a long show. Unexpectedly. Chapter 2594. To put it more accurately, eldest young Miss Miao had been flirting for a while. The Overlord didn't even pay any attention. The guests present seemed to have heard the sound of slapping on Miao Rongrong's face. It was extremely ironic. Miao Rongrong's wrist was pinched by those 2 bamboo chopsticks till she couldn't move at all. Her face was pale as she saw numerous mocking eyes staring at her. She only felt resentful and humiliated. Scram. An icy cold word came out from Dmo Xian's mouth, without the slightest bit of tenderness towards the fairer sex. If it wasn't for the fact that Yiqing Luo still needed Miao Rongrong to suppress the poison for Long Yunzhan, Miao Rongrong would definitely be carried down now. Miao Rongrong's petite body trembled as she bit her lower lip tightly. She gave Yiqing Luo a resentful stare. After that, under Dmo Xian's icy cold gaze, she dejectedly held onto her broken hand and returned to the Miao Gu family's place. Miao Yixiong's face was steely green. The gaze he gave Miao Rongrong seemed as though he wanted to tear her into pieces. Miao Rongrong had always been sought after and pampered since she was young. This was the first time she was rejected by a man in public. Now she was criticized by Miao Yixiong with such a stern gaze. Miao Rongrong felt aggrieved as her eyes turned red instantly. Useless thing. Miao Yixiong frowned as he berated her coldly. Miao Rongrong stared at Miao Yixiong angrily but couldn't find any words to refute. Miao Yixiong gave a cold snort. I've painstakingly raised you to such a good look but you can't even seduce a man and you still have the cheek to cry. Miao Rongrong lowered her head as her hands hung on her thighs as she clenched her fists tightly. Numerous gazes were still desperately looking at Miao Rongrong. Miao Yixiong felt even more embarrassed. If it wasn't for the fact that this was Yin Qinghao's birthday banquet, Miao Yixiong probably would have stood up and left. The atmosphere was extremely awkward and tense. Miao Jingwei looked at the constantly drifting gazes, and at the father and daughter pair who were sulking in silence. He was afraid that this scene would become a laughingstock for everyone. He looked at the Lord Dizun, who was whispering something to Yi Luo. He coughed softly and said in a low voice, "Clan leader, Rongrong, don't be discouraged. In my opinion, the Lord Dizun has feelings for Rongrong." Miao Rongrong's body trembled. She suddenly raised her head and stared at Miao Jingwei with reddened eyes. Miao Yixiong's gaze also shifted to him. Miao Jingwei glanced at Dizun and said, "Rongrong is courting Dizun in public. If Dizun accepts it on the spot, won't people laugh at him for being a flirtatious Dizun? He's Dizun. Even if he's a playboy, it's normal for him to have a harem of 3,000 women." Miao Yixiong did not agree with Miao Jingwei's opinion. Yi Luo's looks aren't outstanding. At most, her strength and talent are passable. However, compared to the Overlord, her talent is nothing. Why would the Overlord like such a girl with no merits? Miao Jingwei continued to analyze, therefore, Yi Luo must have something that the Overlord needs. That's why the Overlord would pretend to dote on Yi Luo. Naturally, he wouldn't accept Rongrong's flattery in front of Yi Luo. Miao Yixiong pondered over Miao Jingwei's words. What he said was not unreasonable. Think about it. Just now, they offended the royal family of North Lan, Xiao Lingling, and Lan Ling Nuo. Look at our Rongrong. Isn't it obvious that she's different? Chapter 2595. Right. That's right. If it wasn't for the fact that the Overlord had no feelings for Rongrong, he wouldn't let Rongrong off so easily. The expression on Miao Yixiong's face eased up. His lips curled into a smile as he patted Miao Rongrong's shoulder lightly. "Good girl, seduce the Overlord well and leave the rest to father. I guarantee that the Overlord will listen to you only." Miao Rongrong's emotions were also stirred up by Miao Jingwei's words. She sneaked a glance at Dmo Xian's direction. That deep and handsome side profile made her heart tremble violently. She nodded vigorously. In her mind, the image of the Overlord hugging her in his arms with a doting gaze appeared. "You still dare to say that you don't attract rotten peach blossoms?" Yi Qing Luo snorted with a displeased look. Dmo Xian's arms circled her waist tightly. "It seems that someone has attracted more rotten peach blossoms than me." It seemed that ever since he came back, he had been biting on the words, rotten peach blossoms. As though she had really hooked up with a lot of peach blossoms. She rolled her eyes and poked his face with her finger. "What rotten peach blossoms do I have? I have already explained the matter regarding Yin Yanxiu very clearly." "Humph," a certain arrogant man gave a light snort. Yi Qing Luo. This style, wasn't it a little strange? "Overlord, are you trying to ruin your image?" A certain Overlord expressed that in front of his wife, there was no need for any image. He narrowed his long and narrow peach blossom eyes and suddenly increased his strength, fiercely pushing her into his arms. Yi Qing Luo's little face crashed into his hard chest. She hadn't had the chance to express her dissatisfaction. Dmo Xian's displeased low and hoarse voice came into her ears. "Are you deliberately hiding it from me, or do you really not know?" "Ah." Yi Qing Luo was dumbfounded. Just as she was about to raise her head and ask what he meant, he suddenly lowered his head and opened his mouth to bite her neck. His teeth were a little forceful. She could feel a tingling feeling. Yi Qing Luo punched him with her fist in pain. Her gaze went past Dmo Xian's tall body and glanced at a certain figure. Her body suddenly stiffened. "You're Jealous of that young sect master Gu. Yiqing Luo recalled Dmo Xian's awkward look as she coughed lightly and asked. The teeth that were biting her neck loosened slightly. Immediately after, another round of forceful chewing. Although it was a bite, it was not really a bite. Yiqing Luo could clearly feel the touch of his tongue as it swept past her skin. Her body trembled slightly. She clutched the clothes on the man's back with both hands. This was his tacit agreement. Not far behind Dmo Xian was probably the 10th row. Gu Jingyu's eyes were glued to them without blinking. From afar, Yiqing Luo could see Gu Jingyu's eyes, which were filled with sorrow, unwillingness and pain. As though he was unable to accept the sweet love between her and Dmo Xian. Ah Xian, I didn't hide it, I just forgot. She immediately explained. However, the man who was hugging her tightened his grip on her delicate body and increased the strength of his teeth. Yiqing Luo groaned in pain. She struggled, that. Ah Xian, I really forgot, stop fooling around. Although Miao Rongrong shared most of the attention. But there were still quite a number of people who were looking at them. He bit her like this. Wouldn't it damage his prestige as an overlord? Dmo Xian refused to let go. Yiqing Luo's struggling temper came. Her little hands pinched hard on his firm waist. The hard muscles felt great. She didn't have the mood to feel it as she gritted her teeth and shouted angrily, I didn't even treat him as a rotten peach blossom. I totally didn't treat him as anything. Why are you still tangling with him for? The man who was hugging her finally loosened his strength. His mouth also moved away from her neck. Yiqing Luo continued to pinch his muscles and refused to let go. Did you bring the vinegar jar with you? If I really brought it with me, he wouldn't be sitting there alive. Dmo Xian gave a cold harumph, totally not intending to conceal his jealousy. He was Dmo Xian's woman. Dared to peep. If it wasn't for the fact that he didn't want to disturb Yin Qinghao's birthday banquet. Chapter 2596. Listening to her own man, her mouth was filled with jealousy. Yiqing Luo hooked one arm around his neck, while the other hand was pinching the muscles on his waist. Immediately, facing Gu Jingyu's gaze, she took the initiative to bend her head and kissed Dmo Xian's lips. A kiss, a light touch. She shifted her body, her little hand slid up along his waist, grabbing his black hair which was hanging on his shoulder. Her fingers hooked lightly, twining his black hair around her fingertips, and tugged slightly. Are you satisfied now? She looked at Gu Jingyu, and then kissed Dmo Xian. Which was to show Gu Jingyu her relationship with Dmo Xian. This action, indeed, pleased Dmo Xian. His brows rose slightly, the long and narrow arc, demonic and seductive. Mo Yao's peach blossom eyes were dyed with bewitching rays, as he gave a low laugh, satisfied. Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes, and loosened the mischievous hand on his waist. This man's body seemed to be made of stone. Her fingers were hurting from the pinching. But the man didn't make a sound. She threw herself into Dmo Xian's arms, and looked at the performance area in front. Because of Miao Rongrong. Everyone also knew about the overlord's love and pampering towards Yi Luo. All of them also dispelled the idea of seducing the overlord. They obediently watched Yin Yinzhou's birthday performance for Yin Qinghao. 10th row seats. Gu Jingyu sat stiffly on his seat. The wine glass in his hand rolled onto the ground. He stared blankly in front, at the direction of Yi Luo and the overlord. His heart was torn in bursts. He closed his eyes in pain. In his mind, Yi Luo's gaze replaying the scene. As if telling him, look, this is my fiancé. The scene where she took the initiative to kiss the overlord. She intentionally kissed him for him to see. She intentionally wanted him to give up. He admitted, Yi Luo had done it. His heart was already like dead ashes. The birthday banquet continued for another 2 hours. It was nearing the end. Yin Qinghao passionately invited Dmo Xian, ghost martial artist, and the rest of the Heavenly Academy to stay at Qinhua clan. In another month, it would be the selection for the Holy Maiden of the Miao tribe. There were also many people who were extremely interested in the Miao tribe. They wanted to take the opportunity to watch the Holy Maiden selection in a month's time. Old Man Gue Yu let Yen Shao Yi and the rest attend Yin Qinghao's birthday banquet as representatives. At the same time, they could go to the Miao tribe to gain some experience. Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo naturally had no objections. Thus, the group stayed in the Great Pleasure sect and arranged for guest rooms. Just as Yiqing Luo and the rest followed housekeeper Yin towards the guest room area, Miao Yixiong led Miao Rongrong forward with a big smile on his face. Faction leader Yin, it's rare for us to leave the Miao tribe, and we're planning to have fun in Qinhua City for a few days. Can you give us 2 rooms? Yin Qinghao's smiling face froze. The surrounding guests who were leaving also looked at the Miao people with disdain. Who didn't know that the Miao tribe had a motive for staying in the Qinyu sect? Obviously, the overlord's attitude towards Miao Rongrong did not dissuade the Miao people. In the eyes of the guests, Miao Yixiong and Miao Rongrong were like a joke. However, Miao Yixiong and Miao Rongrong totally disregarded the surrounding people who were pointing at them, as they looked at Yin Qinghao with smiles on their faces. Yin Qinghao awkwardly looked towards the direction of Dmo Xian and the rest. Those who come are guests. Faction leader Yin, since the Miao tribe leader wants to stay in the Qinyu sect, then let them stay. Yiqing Luo chuckled as she shot a glance at Miao Yixiong. Star. Chapter 2597. This, Yin Qinghao looked at Miao Yixiong, who was smiling sincerely, and still felt that something was wrong. Anyone could tell that Miao Yixiong had brought Miao Rongrong to the Qinhua sect because of the Dizun. Let them stay. Wouldn't that give them a chance to harass Dizun? It was not easy for him to convince Dizun, Gue Wu, and the others to stay in the Qinhua clan. If Miao Yixiong angered Dizun, wouldn't that be venting their anger on him? No matter, even if eldest young Miss Miao wants to seduce Miao Xian, she doesn't have the capital, so I don't think much of her. Yiqing Luo said with a smile. Miao Rongrong, who was at the side, heard it very clearly. She was so angry that she almost wanted to retort. Before she could speak, Miao Yixiong grabbed her tightly. Miao Rongrong suppressed her anger, her eyes filled with coldness. Did he have the capital? Yi Luo, that little slut, doesn't have the final say. She was waiting for the overlord to listen only to her. When he only doted on her, she wanted Yi Luo to have a taste of what it felt like to be in pain. Yin Qinghao found it hard to refuse. After all, the Miaogu aristocrat clan's patriarch had personally spoken. He had been afraid of the Dizun and had not dared to agree to it easily. He was also worried that it would affect him. But Yiqing Luo had an indifferent attitude. He nodded his head and ordered his men to bring the few Miao people to the guest room. But he specially instructed them to separate the courtyards of the Miao people and Yiqing Luo and the others to the furthest. Yiqing Luo and the rest were arranged to stay in a courtyard, separated into several small rooms. Although it was called a small room, it was actually not that small. Moreover, the interior design was extremely elegant. It could be seen that this courtyard was usually used to receive important guests. Originally, Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian were in 2 separate rooms. But under Dmo Xian's silent gaze, Steward Yin was so frightened that he swallowed back the words he wanted to say to separate them. After that, he arranged for the 2 of them to stay in the most spacious and most elegant, husband and wife guest room. Yiqing Luo expressed, her reputation, her clean reputation, really no longer existed. Fortunately, the people from the Qin Yu sect did not look at them as if they were unmarried and living with a man. It wasn't that he didn't dare. Instead, everyone felt that it was very normal. Because of the way Di Zun doted on Yi Luo. She wanted nothing more than to stick to Yi Luo. They should be in the same room. At least Yi Luo was here. There was still someone who could soothe Di Zun. The most important thing was, the overlord had already called Yi Luo's name in front of everyone at the banquet. Mother, son. Perhaps Yi Luo had already married His Majesty. Yi Luo might even be the mistress of the imperial palace. Hence, when Yiqing Luo saw this couple's room, some extremely ambiguous, seductive props. He was completely dumbfounded. Weren't these ancient people a little too open-minded? What kind of person did they treat Dmo Xian as? They couldn't handle such a hardcore thing. What's the matter? Dmo Xian asked softly as he saw Yiqing Luo standing motionlessly beside a wooden cabinet. His voice caused the little woman's body to suddenly jump. She quickly turned around and opened her arms. Her cheeks were so red that they seemed to be dripping water. No, nothing. What's behind? Dmo Xian narrowed his peach blossom eyes. No, nothing at all. Yiqing Luo coughed violently as her hands hurriedly closed the cabinet. Let's go rest, go rest. Dmo Xian was pushed into the inner room by Yiqing Luo. His upper body's weight was almost all on Yiqing Luo's hands. Chapter 2598. Yiqing Luo avoided his gaze and pursed her lips. I'm not nervous. Ha! This sound came from the man's nose. It was extremely sexy and flirtatious. Yiqing Luo's hands trembled slightly and almost couldn't control herself. And it was this tremble that gave the man an opportunity. Dmo Xian's large palm suddenly clasped her wrist. Immediately after, her body was like a feather, flying in a circle and trapped in Dmo Xian's arms. She widened her eyes and wanted to struggle. The man's arms seemed to know her movements. He had trapped her in his arms early on. Let me see, what are you trying to hide from me? Dmo Xian carried her and walked towards the wooden cabinet. Yiqing Luo's feet stepped on the ground, gathering all her strength and refused to move. How could her strength match Dmo Xian? No matter how she tried to stop him. Dmo Xian could easily hold her as they got closer to the wooden cabinet. The closer they got, Yiqing Luo's cheeks were dyed red and the panic in her eyes was even more obvious. The two of them stood in front of the wooden cabinet. He raised his hand and placed it on the cabinet door. The young lady stretched out her hand in panic and grabbed his arm. Xian, let's not be curious. I'm very interested in things that can make you so flustered. Dmo Xian's husky voice whispered in her ear. The deep meaning in his eyes seemed to be mixed with some kind of emotion. His broad palm fiercely hugged her slender waist, pressing her petite body tightly against his. Yiqing Luo's face blushed all the way to her ears. Creak. The cabinet door was opened. It revealed a dazzling array of things inside. What were iron chains, soft whips, silk cloth to cover one's eyes, or bracelets and ankles, as well as a variety of things that made one blush. Dmo Xian's hand slightly stiffened. Yiqing Luo was so embarrassed that she directly stuffed her head into Dmo Xian's arms. She expressed that in the modern era, she had seen more, various kinds of things than these. At that time, her heart was without a ripple. But now, seeing these inferior things, her face was flushed and her heart was racing. unable to control it. Because the person standing beside her was DMO Xian. You don't want me to see these. DMO Xian's deep eyes drooped down as he gazed at the young lady in his arms who was so shy that she didn't even want to raise her head. Yiqing Luo's petite body trembled as she buried her head in his arms. One could see that her fair neck had been tainted with a faint shade of pink. DMO Xian gave a low chuckle as his fingers tightened around her waist bit by bit. Being shy means that you know what these things are used for. The man's boiling hot body transmitted a scorching heat through his clothes. Yiqing Luo's heart was thumping as it kept trembling. The strength of the man's arms tightened. She could almost feel something pressing against her body. She who had been intimate with DMO Xian before, how could she not understand the change in DMO Xian at this moment? It could be said that during the birthday party, DMO Xian was flirting with her as he responded. Tell me, how do you know? DMO Xian lowered his head, his scorching breath teasing her skin. Yiqing Luo trembled even more fiercely. I just know. The young lady's sweet voice, at this moment, had an obvious coquettish tone. It seemed to be able to hook one's soul, emitting a suffocating charm. I know, why don't we try it one by one? DMO Xian gave a low chuckle as he stretched out his other hand. 5 fingers moved gently on her face. Chapter 2599. The young lady's exquisite face was reflected in the man's burning pupils. The moment this familiar face appeared, Lin Fan's eyes widened. DMO Xian's body suddenly tensed up. Both hands suddenly clasped her shoulders. Immediately, she was carried up by the waist. Yiqing Luo was shocked and felt the man's stronger reaction. Her hands immediately hooked onto DMO Xian's neck. At the same time, DMO Xian's kiss landed accurately on her pink lips. This kiss was different from the previous simple touch. It was also different from the previous gentleness. But it was a kind of overbearing kiss, as if he wanted to swallow her into his stomach. Yiqing Luo's mind instantly went blank. Her whole body, almost hanging on DMO Xian's body weakly, until her back sank into the soft mattress. She then woke up from her dream. Her little hand pushed his chest weakly. Beast, you. Ugh. Before she could finish her protest, she was sealed once again. Yiqing Luo couldn't breathe. In the panic, she met DMO Xian's fiery eyes. His hoarse voice rang beside her ear. Lil Luo, I miss you. All the time, I miss you. Miss her, almost to the point of going crazy. His voice, his words, his gaze, made Yiqing Luo throw away her armor towards his deep feelings. She could never resist. In the end, she was eaten up cleanly, not a single residue was left. In the room, the temperature was high. Faintly mixed with the young lady's panicked protest, DMO Xian. Let me say this first, the things in the cupboard, we will absolutely not play with. The group of people, in the Joyce sect, had spent 3 days. The few Miao people who had been silent for the past few days finally couldn't hold back and started to take action. This day, the group of people set up a few tables outside the courtyard. Yiqing Luo nestled in DMO Xian's arms, discussing with Yan Xiaoyi and the rest about the Heavenly Academy. When Peach heard that, she directly said that she wanted to apply to enter the devil class. Gue Wu, who was sitting at another table, remained silent. No one knew what he was thinking about. Zhou Mo was hugging Kitty Li, whispering something to her from time to time, which was rather sweet. The atmosphere was just right. But for some reason, Miao Yi and Xian Gue were sitting in a corner with their heads bowed, looking absent-minded. Especially Miao Yi. Since the end of the birthday banquet, he had not been able to lift his spirits. Even if Yiqing Luo took the initiative to talk to her, she didn't get much of a reaction. However, Yiqing Luo could roughly guess the reason. Thus, they didn't force Miao Yi to integrate into their atmosphere as soon as possible. While they were chatting, a deep laughter suddenly came from outside the courtyard. Ha ha ha. Looks like this courtyard is the liveliest. I should have come earlier to join in the fun. Miao Yixiong, who was dressed in the Miao tribe's attire, walked in with a big smile on his face. Miao Rongrong, who had obviously dressed up meticulously, followed behind him. In the corner, Miao Yi's body froze. Xian Gui immediately stood up and stood in front of Miao Yi. Miao Yi got up, grabbed Xian Gui's arm, and quickly rushed into the room. Yiqing Luo's peripheral vision caught a glimpse of their departing figures as her eyes flashed past an extremely shallow and profound meaning. But, she still put her attention on Miao Yixiong and Miao Rongrong, who were obviously here to find trouble. Overlord, Master Gui Wu, young Master Mo, Miao Yixiong walked in and greeted the three of them respectfully with a familiar look. Dmo Xian's head was still bowed, his large palm on Yiqing Luo's hair gently. Gui Wu was still in a deep state, maintaining his silence, not even lifting his eyelids. Zhou Mo was still hugging Kitty Li, lowered his head and secretly kissed Kitty Li's face. His eyes were filled with smiles, feeling very satisfied. Chapter 2600. But what kind of person was Miao Yixiong? He had already made up his mind to shamelessly send his daughter to Dmo Xian's side. This bit of awkwardness was nothing to him. Very quickly, Miao Yixiong continued with a smile. Rongrong had borrowed Qinua's sex kitchen to make some snacks and specially sent it over for you to have a taste. Saying that, he took a look behind him. Miao Rongrong was carrying a bamboo basket which was covered with a silk cloth. Swaying her waist, she leisurely walked towards the table where Yiqing Luo and the rest were at. She placed the bamboo basket on the table. When the silk cloth was opened, it was filled with various exquisite fragrant pastries. One look and one smell and it was extremely appetizing. Miao Rongrong was standing beside Dmo Xian. Yiqing Luo could clearly smell the fragrance from Miao Rongrong. It was extremely rich and made one's nose turn red. Overlord, have a taste. These are all made by me personally. A coquettish voice came out from Miao Rongrong's mouth. From the bamboo basket, she took out a piece of brightly colored pastry that looked very delicious. She delicately handed it over. These are the special pastries of our Miao tribe. Other than the Miao tribe, no one else knows how to make them. As she said that, Miao Rongrong sent the pastries towards Dmo Xian's mouth. Yan Xiao Yi and the rest widened their eyes as they stared straight at the coquettish Miao Yi. Their hearts were filled with curses. This Miao Rongrong's brain was not working well right. A few days ago at the birthday banquet, the overlord had already rejected her. Didn't she understand the situation? Now, she actually went to seduce the overlord in front of Yiqing Luo. Didn't they see Yiqing Luo nestled in the overlord's arms? These Miao tribe people, were they tired of living and wanted to die early? Just as Miao Rongrong's hand which was holding the pastries was about to reach Dmo Xian's mouth. A paw sound was heard. Miao Rongrong's hand was hit by a burst of energy. She cried out in pain as the pastries in her hand fell onto the ground. She held onto her hand and staggered a few steps back. Dmo Xian slowly raised his head. His obsidian peach blossom eyes had a deep luster, as if it was a whirlpool of terror. Miao Rongrong's hand, which had been hit, was in so much pain that she felt wronged. After meeting Dmo Xian's gaze, all the grievances had vanished into thin air. Her heart was beating faster and faster. His eyes were filled with excitement. The overlord was looking at her, the overlord was indeed interested in her. Miao Rongrong was nervous and expectant. Her eyes were filled with emotion as she transmitted her love through her gaze. Following that, they saw Dmo Xian's thin lips moving, only to hear the icy cold words spitting out from his thin lips. Scram. Clean and efficient, without any hesitation. Miao Rongrong's expression froze. Yan Xiaoyi and the rest burst into laughter. He did not give Miao Rongrong any face at all. I say, young Miss Miao, why do you have to make yourself look like a clown and specially come here to perform for us? Yan Xiaoyi laughed and fell into Qiao Jin's arms. Of all people, Miao Rongrong had fallen for Di Zun. In the eyes of the overlord, there were only 3 types of women. A kind of people who were related to Qing Luo. A kind of people who had nothing to do with Qing Luo. A kind of people who had enmity with Qing Luo. Other than Qing Luo, any other woman in front of the overlord would be one of the 3 types. Coincidentally, Miao Rongrong was the 3rd type. However, Miao Rongrong was not aware of it. She just had to court death. The overlord was indeed too awesome. Chapter 2601. Eldest young Miss Miao's broken hand at the birthday banquet has yet to recover, and now she can't wait to extend her hand to be beaten. Yi Qing Luo's clear voice had a hint of teasing. Could it be? Eldest young Miss Miao has fallen in love with the pleasure of having her wrist broken. Yan Xiaoyi and the rest laughed even louder when they heard that. Miao Rongrong only felt humiliated as her entire face flushed red. She looked at Yi Qing Luo with a gaze filled with deep hatred. But when she turned towards Dmo Xian, it turned into love and grievance. Yi Qing Luo naturally saw Miao Rongrong's gaze. She couldn't help but chuckle as her brows revealed a smile, yet not a smile of ridicule. Yi Qing Luo expressed that she really didn't understand Miao Rongrong as a person. It had already come to this stage. Miao Rongrong still had the confidence to seduce Dmo Xian again and again. Although Yi Qing Luo was very assured towards her own man. But there was such an irritating housefly that kept scuttling around her, and even came to harass her from time to time. It was quite annoying. The few of them giggled as they didn't leave any face for the Miao people. Miao Yixiong's expression turned darker. Miao Rongrong's hands clenched into fists as anger surfaced on her face. But very quickly, she kept all her emotions. She took a deep breath and changed the expression on her face into a pitiful grievance look. Following that, she held on to her injured hand as she cried pitifully, "Overlord, Rongrong only wanted to let you have a taste of the pastries that Rongrong made personally. These pastries are all made by Rongrong with all my heart, and contain Rongrong's sincerity." Miao Yixiong immediately continued, "That's right, before the sky had even turned bright, Rongrong had already woken up to make pastries for the overlord. From the ingredients to the handwork, to the lighting of the fire. Rongrong did all these personally. These are all Rongrong's sincerity towards the overlord." Pfft. Another burst of laughter came from Yi Qing Luo's mouth. She lifted her eyelids lazily as she sneered, "Earlier, didn't Miao Yixiong say that these pastries are for us to have a taste? How did it become specially made for Xian?" Miao Yixiong's face darkened, then he hurriedly explained, It's specially for everyone to try." "That's good." Yi Qing Luo sat up straight in Dmo Xian's arms. Nodding her head in satisfaction, she adjusted the expression on her face to look extremely arrogant and spoiled. "I'm very jealous. I can't bear to see other women pestering my Xian." As she said that, she casually rolled up her fine black hair and leaned into Dmo Xian's embrace. "I'm a very cruel person to those little bitches who pester my Xian. Miss Miao is such a beautiful young lady, don't take things too hard." Miao Rongrong's body trembled. Thinking of Yi Luo's strength, as well as the goo poison that Yi Luo had placed in his body, Yi Luo's heart sank. His face gradually turned pale. Miao Yixiong forced a smile and tried to ease the atmosphere. Of course, we all know that His Majesty dotes on Miss Yi. As he spoke. At the same time, he emphasized the word unique pet. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.